Industry news, machine reviews, interviews, and a lot more right here on the Weld Like Bazza podcast.
You know, people will say, "Oh, well, how much is a simulator?" Yes, it's a lot of money, but if you're saving 68% on consumables, it'll pay for itself.
This week, I am joined in the studio for the second time by Callum from EWM UK. We talk about the Mach Show 2024, Cobots, welding simulators, TIG speed, and the future of welding before we talk about diet, exercise, and lifestyle. Check out the show notes wherever you get your podcasts, and I hope you enjoy every second of episode 10 of the Weld Like Bazza podcast.
That's the... You might get into a point where you find that you've got a welding podcast, but you're going more to a lifestyle, you know, like Bartlett has.
Yeah.
And now when Jimmy Carr was on and he was saying to Bartlett, what do you want in 10 years' time or 20, and he said, oh, well, I would just like to have a podcast still about business. And Jimmy Carr went, you haven't got a podcast about business now.
I thought funniest part about that one was when he turned around and he went, you know, I sometimes think I should be a DJ.
Brilliant, isn't it? Yeah, well done, Stephen. You've got a hobby.
Yeah.
My mates bang into that DJing stuff now. But he knows people that literally in their bedroom, and they're like, they'll do that and they'll record it and then they'll put it into a song, or they'll use hairspray and go like that on the microphone and bring it into the song.
So the sample sounds. I remember, I think I saw someone jump on Instagram once and somebody recorded the sound of you know, the road crossings when it beeps, and then they tuned it down and timed it, and that became like a number one
it's
hit tune.
Absolutely mental.
How did he get on at Mach? How did that go?
Mach was really busy. It was a lot busier than I thought it was ever going to be honest. The sort of placement of our stand was perfect. It was at like a crossroad,
right,
between like a lot of different things. So you had like the main like Haas stand for CNC stuff.
Yeah.
And then that was like a welding village type thing, you know?
Okay.
So we were like sort of 4 different points where people could walk past for. So yeah, it was really busy. I mean, I drove down with Johnny, Ben, Alan was down there on the Sunday.
Right.
So we set up from, I think it was like 10 o'clock in the morning till 7 in the afternoon.
Because the EWM stand was phenomenal, wasn't it? It was huge.
It was the biggest sort of like investment we've made in terms of a UK show.
Right.
We did it a number of years ago and we were sort of out the way. It wasn't as big as it probably should have been, and we didn't get the volume of traffic like we did this time. So yeah, the setup was great. Hard work, you know, everything sort of... But it all came together nicely at the end of the Sunday. We looked back and went, whatever happens, we've produced the best stand we could. Turned up Monday morning, the roof was leaking on our stand.
Really?
Yeah. So there must have been a problem in a specific, like there was a tray like above. When you looked at it, you could see there was like a gully and we were directly underneath that. So there was us, there was a company we work with in the Northeast called Cobots Online.
Yes.
There was actually rain going into the back of their TV. It tripped all the electrics. This was at 8:30 in the morning. Doors were opening to the public at 9.
Worst possible start you could imagine.
You could imagine what Alan was like.
Stressed.
Yeah. Some woman approached him to sign the hot work permit, and I was like... He's like, this is not the right time. He says, I need a roofer or something. I know. So it was dripping all over our stand. We had a TV as well. And then it was like the walkway right next to our welding booth. There was buckets collecting water. So it was like, you couldn't have asked for a worse start. But the organisers, they were very quickly on the stand before the sort of the main like kick off at around 11 o'clock in the mornings
when people really start to
no one turns up at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Monday. Sad people. But yeah, they got it sorted a couple of different ways. You could tell they were on the roof because it was really coming through at some point, and they must have been trying to fix it. But I was there Monday, Tuesday. I drove home Tuesday night because I had tender to do, so I needed to be in the office for that. I came back on the Friday morning and they basically put a tarpaulin on the roof and tied it with string. And then Alan was saying that they would like after the Wednesday night or something, they were going up on a cherry picker and just draining the water out of it. So I don't know how they didn't know for all the months of rain in the UK
that we've had
that was a problem.
Yeah,
but it didn't stop anything. It didn't spoil anything.
And what did he take to the stand?
So we had TIG Speed, Titan AC, and a twin wire feed Titan welding. So Johnny was doing live welding with that. We had a Cobot. It was a Universal Robots 16, mounted upside down on a gantry system.
Okay. And that's from the Cobot company that you work in partnership with, is it? Or is that your own?
So Universal Robots actually loaned us the robot.
Okay.
And then the gantry system came from Germany.
Right.
So we had it in Essen.
Okay.
And it was connected to another Titan. So we've got something called AnyRob. So it's basically an interface which is connected to the control box of the robot by an Ethernet cable.
Okay.
And what's pretty unique about it is you can use the Titan as a manual machine. So it's got a standard wire feeder, standard power source, the AnyRob bolts to the side, and those rails along the side.
Yeah, on the side, yep.
So the AnyRob bolts into that, and then you can run a second intercon up to a robot wire feed unit.
Robot wire feed unit, yeah.
And when you've got a twin wire feed and you can tap the trigger.
It goes between two, yep.
It does the same thing. So you can essentially tack components ready to go, put them on the table. So you don't
need two machines. You can use one Titan.
Just one Titan or Phoenix or Taurus, any XQ machine. Yep. And you just tack and put everything, the components together, load it onto a table, whatever. You press a button and it instantly gives command to the robot, press play, and it'll weld the components. So
have you had a chat with Universal Robots then about how they believe that the UR robot, the Cobot situation collaborates safely with like the operators? Because there's a lot of people who do believe that it should be completely shielded off and you should have a lot of protection. What's Universal Robots' take on it?
It depends on what application. So in welding, you're going to have to get to a point where you are shutting it off.
I believe.
Yeah, 100% because of, the UV and all that sort of stuff. And if it's just a pick and place robot, the robots, they're designed to be, like, that's why they're called Cobots.
Yes.
So they're designed to work with humans. But in a welding situation, you're going to need some screens, permanent screens. So I haven't had loads of conversations with them about it. There's always that sticking point around like CE approval and all that sort of stuff.
Because that comes down to the person who puts everything together.
Yeah.
So although you might buy a motor and a gearbox and some rack and that's all CE marked, the minute you put it together, it becomes a machine.
Yeah.
And it's your responsibility then as the integrator or the machine builder to do the CE marking for that. And I think there's a lot of people that just kind of forget that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be able to sleep on a night forgetting that needs to be done.
I don't know whether like the emphasis has been put onto the end user and saying it's sort of your responsibility once it's there. Are you happy with the way it is? And, I haven't had that sort of conversation in terms of that.
There's a Universal Robots manual up there and there's some other stuff. And I've read a full white paper from KUKA Robots. And basically it does land with you because you're the person who puts it together. And it lands with you because if something goes wrong, they're going to come to you. Yeah. The company that have the robot in their premises, they'll probably come to you and say, it's taken somebody's eye out or it's stabbed somebody in the hand or, those robots move quick, don't they? Like some of the big ones, 4 meters a second.
You can there's like safety planes you can introduce and all that sort of stuff. And I think with the Cobots, they recognise for like the touch of a human as well, and it moves quick, but it can stop quick. An industrial robot will put you through the wall and keep going.
You're finished. You're done.
Yeah. So, like I say, there's loads of different sticking points out there. I would say, you know what I mean.
Well, there loads of interest on the stand about the robot.
Yeah, there was quite a few.
Cool.
I think people are at a point now where they're ready to commit. I was like speaking to a few different one company came on, there was 3 different guys, and you could tell they were all really wanting to say, yes, we'll do it, but no one wants that one person to have that responsibility. So, and they're just doing their sort of research in terms of why is ours different to someone else's, and so that's where the AnyRob system can be a advantage. Or
that's a really good idea. That's a fantastic idea.
I like it. Like I say, it's quite unique to us. And then you've got the Smooth Tool software we use. It's, in my opinion, by far the easiest.
And why do you think it's by far the easiest? What's your kind of?
There's only 3 buttons on the actual flange of the Smooth Tool. So you've got a free drive button, and there's 2 other buttons. One flashes blue for linear welds, one flashes red for circular.
Okay.
But then they've got, if you go into the parameters setting, you've got weaving options. There's a tack function now. There's touch sense. So you can set basically the outline of the component. If it moves, it measures that again, and it automatically adjusts where at the start point. So that's pretty new. I think that was only introduced not long ago. So from what, as soon as you have anyone that's interested in a Cobot and they're a bit hesitant, you just get a hold of the free drive button and move it around, and they're like, that's amazing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And then so we were welding up these wall-mounted EWM bottle openers.
Nice.
I'm going to get them all painted, so I'll drop you one in. So I basically programmed it on the Sunday I was just doing cold arc vertical down on the inside. So there's 4 welds.
Fantastic.
It took us 10 minutes to program. So it's all about having, again, safe approach points. I was putting the angles in by hand, but you can actually go into the Smooth Tool and put an angle.
Okay.
And it'll manipulate to that angle once it starts. So you can make it as easy or as complicated as you want, really.
I think do you know, like if you put the Titan or Phoenix or even a Taurus, you read across the positive and negative, there's 19 volts there normally. I always thought of that'd be a really good way before we had software like that to interface into your system. So when that 19 volts disappears, which it will do when you put the positive to the electrode, you could use that as your gauging point. Just something that went on in my mind at middle of the night. Like we could use that 19 volts and feed it back. And when it disappears, we'd know that we'd touched a seam or whatever. But it's good now that we've got something that integrates with the kit and the software, because that is one of the biggest selling points of the UR robot, isn't it?
Everyone's using, the most Cobot solutions you'll see, it's going to be UR.
Yeah.
Fanuc have a one as well. I haven't had any personal experience with that yet, but, everyone you see I think UR is, probably the best.
They've done very well at getting out there before everybody else, I think, and really saturating the market.
And like I say, after that, it's all about the software. So I had a lot of questions. Well, why should I buy yours, and why should I not buy that one over there? And then as soon as I showed them the pendant with the software and the actual integration side of it, so it's only an Ethernet. You just search IP, it pings the IP across from the control box from the weld machine, and it says connected. So there's a proper EWM UR cap there.
Yeah.
It's as easy as that. So that's sort of they're becoming more of a plug and play system.
Which it needs to be.
Yeah. Because you don't want to overcomplicate it.
No, and you want to be able to say, I want to do that weld in forced arc, I want to be able to do that in cold arc, and you don't want to have to go back to the system, the welder to do that. You want to be able to do it all in your software, don't you?
Yeah.
And that's something that wasn't easily achievable, right, when everybody started doing it.
The program side of it as well. So, saving, we've all got the programs and the EWMs you can save, but you can match them up with programs on the pendant.
Yes.
So something as easy as, I was thinking on the Thursday, I took that robot out the box and I bolted it straight onto the gantry upside down. And I was like, I've been welding with that all week. And I was like, I'm going to get that back in that box exactly the same. But you have like a program in there for out of the box.
Yeah. And
so you just press the button and it goes back.
It folds itself back on itself.
And it's something so simple. But I asked the guy from UR, I was like, mate, this might be a silly question, but how do I get that back? And he's like, I'll go in a program and there's a out of box program.
Yeah.
And
I thought that was cool when I had one in years ago.
I just pressed it and just folded itself up, took 4 bolts out, went straight in the box. And
they're super light as well. They're not like an industrial robot arm.
No.
That's what's good about them.
There's different sizes as well. So I think there's a 5, that might be a 3, a 10, a 16, a 20. The 20 is a beast like.
Do you think this goes against what our mate Sheldon's been talking about in the podcast regarding getting people interested in welding again, though? Do you think the robots becoming so good? So it seems to have advanced in 6 months, does the robot technology, you know, the software, the amount of time that people are putting into making these interfaces that work with them, it seems to really develop fast. And that's pretty much the way that kind of technology goes, isn't it? Do you think it's going to get in the way of young people wanting to come into the industry? Are they going to see it as a fear factor that the robot's still going to take our job anyway? Or does it come back to what we initially said right at the very beginning? That's a tool for somebody to be using, but ultimately we still need the kids at 16 coming in with a hunger to learn how to weld and then to, you know, learn to move up to, they may become a program operator for the robot side of it, and they may become also a manual welder, or they may get a particular project to oversee, and they can say that part's got to be predominantly manually welded and that part's got to be predominantly robot welded, and there's a really good application and solution for both.
Yeah.
Do you think that is going to be something that entices like the young kids to come into the industry?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing with Mach is a lot of colleges or, you know, local schools will bring students in, and they're all on the lanyards, it states that they're a student.
Right.
So we had loads of kids, 15, 16-year-old, looking at the robot.
Right.
Like, just saying, that's unbelievable. Like, can you tell me more about it?
Yeah.
And you've got to then change the way you talk, because you're not trying to sell it to them because you know that they're not going to be buying it. But you've got to, like, try and inspire them to say, I want to go back to college and say, yeah, we should be learning about this. And I think colleges... you know, and IoTs will probably look at cobot welding
right
in the near future, in terms of they're going to have to offer something like that.
It's going to have to be a qualification.
Probably, yeah. I mean, but I don't think it's going to put them off, because it's like, I've got a pendant in my hand and I've got control of a robot. They're like, how cool is that? You know,
and I don't think it's going to be long before, you know, you program something on your phone or your iPad at home on a night, and you take that to work with you the next day and load it in.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to make, if we can bridge that gap, because I can't get my son off his phone without threatening to smash it up with an hammer, which regularly happens. If you can bridge that gap so your kids can design and look at it and kind of move it around. A good example of that is the IKEA app, isn't it? You can have a look at a piece of furniture in the IKEA store in your living room. That'd be a really good kind of thing to implement, so people can go, right, that's a product we're going to be welding. I'm going to take this home and have a look at this. I can mess about with it on my phone. You go in the morning, you load it up to the robot, and then the robot, right, this is what I did last night. You know, not everybody's going to be that enthusiastic to take work home, but if we can make that transition, you know, I've just been thinking out the box from what Sheldon said. How do we get people interested? And one of his things he said in a telephone conversation the other day was, you know, we need to take this to government and we need to take it to schools. But on the other side of it, if we've already got kids coming into your stand at Mach being blown away by the robot, that carrot's already been dangled, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And if we can bridge that gap and make it even more familiar with them so they can do some of this stuff on their own, I think that'd be really cool.
It's like, for me, it depends on not the area. It's mainly driven from the person who's teaching these kids. And like, when I go to colleges like nearly every week, and you see the different level of, you know, the example that they're setting. They don't realize, or a lot of these teachers or lecturers don't realize that they're developing these kids.
That's right.
More probably than their parents.
Yes.
You know, my welding teacher used to, you know, give me a right hard time because I probably wasn't into it as much.
Right.
And by the end of it, he always says I was one of his best.
Yeah.
Because he got that out of me.
Yes.
I didn't really want to do welding at college.
Right.
And he got the best out of me, and by the time I finished all my test pieces earlier than everyone else.
Yes.
He actually spent the time with me. I remember we did a mock exam, and I failed mine miserably because I didn't want to be.
Was it a lack of interest, or did it just not?
Well, the welding side of that job wasn't. It wasn't enough. You know, it was. I was working for John Deere at the time, so I didn't weld every day. And I was sort of, it's like learning French at school. I don't speak French to anyone.
Why would I want to do it?
Exactly. And I had that attitude, and he actually, you know, all the other lads in the classroom did really well. And I was pretty embarrassed. I was like, I haven't applied myself. It was a mock exam at the end of the day, but it's sort of, you know, they're a mock exam for a reason. And he actually spent the time, he took me out the classroom into a separate classroom, sat us down, asked us why, and then ran me through all the questions. And I was like, right, he didn't have to do that, because at the end of the day, he gets paid the same amount of money.
Yeah.
And the next one, I flew through the actual exam, and some of the questions that, you know, everyone else struggled on, I excelled in. And I sort of then went, well, I'm going to pass all of this because for him, just as well as myself. So if these kids have got an influential figure as a really enthusiastic teacher, like, that's going to, you know, shape the way they want to be.
And I agree with that, because something that I said previously was, I've been into colleges where the guy that's delivering the course and the syllabus is the guy that could weld a little bit better than everybody else at the company where he works. He wasn't even from a welding background, or he may have had the most basic welding qualification ever, but now he's teaching kids. It's an easy job to him. He doesn't really want to be there. He can't cope with the kids and the pressure of it. He doesn't like the paperwork side of it all of a sudden. He's not going to be that guy that gets the best out of those kids.
Yeah.
So we do need people like this guy that was teaching you, like you and me.
Well, you know what? I've found everyone, I don't know if, like, it might just be me, but everyone I come across in terms of whoever's teaching kids in school are all ex-forces. It seems to be a massive, like, must be some link between it.
Right, okay.
So they're already very disciplined, regimented from their previous, you know, career. And mine was ex-forces.
Right.
So you could, that level of the way that they speak to, you know, the kids, that, not a massive yes sir, no sir.
I agree, yeah.
Go running up and down the street like Full Metal Jacket, singing songs and all that.
They've got a very good way of manipulating a conversation, making you feel good.
Yeah.
So Oliver's shooting teacher, Adam, ex-forces, 35 years.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time Oliver met Adam, and Adam's 6'3" unit, still just a couple of years younger than my dad. And he kind of looked up at him like this, and within half an hour, Oliver's taking Adam's Harley Davidson to pieces and taking his own gun to pieces in the garage, and he's teaching him how to put it back together and shoot with it.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. You know, people who's number one passionate about the outcome of the pupil and know how to get it across.
Yeah, they've got to. Yeah, it's in their best interest. But like I said, I don't think they realise how much of an effect. Like, that had a massive effect on me.
Yeah.
In terms of when I was 15, 16, I didn't do it locally. I moved to it was Brooksby, so it was 3.5 hours from my house. At 16, my mum dropped me off, and I essentially lived in a hostel with 30 other kids, all in the same.
Really?
From Cornwall, Scotland, all over the place. That's why I've got mates all over the UK.
Wicked.
Because we were all dropped into this hostel, essentially, no one like speaking to each other. But, you know, the teachers there all knew that, and they all got us. They were like brothers by the end of it. I still speak to some of them now. Every time I go to Cornwall, I meat up with one of my mates from there.
This is really cool. University, but at 16.
Yeah, but the same thing. I like you say, you had to do your own washing. Like 16-year-old, we just wanted to mess about and all that, you know. And, you know, we did it quite a bit.
Because you're only 20 now, right?
Oh, yeah. I was laughing when you and Sheldon were saying that I was part of the young generation in Welding.
Well, I was trying to work out if you'd had a spray tan or not before you came today. I'm like, I you know, every time I phone you on a weekend or approaching a weekend, you're in the barbers.
Yeah, it seems to be Sorry, Barry, I was just getting my hair cut there.
But I think that must have been a really good experience at 16 years old. Not many kids are going to get that. That's a really good thing.
I think that pretty much shaped me, like, not what I am, because I've changed massively in the last 6 months alone, but you've got to sort of not fend for yourself, but, you know, you need to learn stuff, you know, that normally your mum and dad would just say, yeah, this is how you do it. But I do, like, sort of say a massive thanks to those teachers back then, because, like I said, the influence they have on students is more than some of the parents.
I went to my college that I went to for my engineering apprenticeship. They had a Fiesta RS 2000 in the back that the mechanical guys used to work on, and it was out of the original Ford Fiesta RS 2000 TV commercial.
Right.
So, like, that's one of the things they kind of lure you in with. And then the guys in the workshop are guys that have worked on lathes and milling machines their entire lives. So like when you make a mess or you get something wrong and you say, look, I want a bit of help, or they show you all the tricks, and these guys are already like probably 60 years old, ready for getting, to retirement age, and they're already giving you everything that they've learned in 40 years worth of working. And I'm thankful for that situation, like using the blue touch paper, and all that kind of stuff that you could only learn, through somebody with all that experience.
It goes the other way. I mean, some people are very reluctant as well, and to share that knowledge. And I used to work with one guy, he just hated like young'uns.
Some people are like that.
He was very bitter towards me and other apprentices, and it's like...
It's almost, I almost worry. I worry if that's like a fear that somebody's going to come in and take their job.
Yeah.
And I quite often see it on the shop floor in factories, or we never ask so-and-so because he's not going to tell us.
Yeah.
Or if we ask so-and-so, he always tells us the wrong settings to use.
Yeah.
To try and make people look bad so he looks better.
Yeah, I don't know why people act like that, but especially like in this day and age with, if you're sort of withholding information to a youngster and all that, when that's the best time that their brain is going to absorb all that information, like you're just harming their future and development.
The best bit of information I gave Oliver this morning was 15 minutes into the 50-minute school run, and he turns around in the van and goes, we're going to have to go back home, Dad. And I looked at him and I'm like, what? Yeah, my PE kit and my football boots are still in my bedroom. My advice to him at that point was, you might be walking to school.
Yeah.
But what else did you have on the stand? Did you have the virtual reality set up there?
Yeah, so this is it's augmented reality.
Which means...
So virtual reality is you're in a virtual environment. So
that would be whatever you see, it's virtual.
You're in a completely different environment so if you put a headset on, you can be anywhere in the world.
Oliver's got an Oculus, so I guess it's comparable.
It's essentially the same thing. But, in terms of a welding simulator, there's manufacturers that offer VR sets. I think they stage you maybe in a construction site or something to...
So it's staged?
Yeah, it's replicating the environment, and I understand why they do it. But the one we use is augmented reality. So you can look around and I can see you now. I can look back at the machine and I see the machine.
So is it like a welding helmet yours?
It's based off a Speedglass 9000 series, I think.
Wow.
It's actually got a lens holder inside for cheetah lenses.
Really?
Yeah. I should have brought it in for you. But you can go on YouTube. It's called the Soldermatic.
Well, next time you come down, you should bring it with you and we'll do a video, and then you can show everybody how bad I am.
Well, I think you used it a few years ago at an open day. The very early version.
The very, very early version.
It's come on such a long way. I mean, the helmet itself back in the old days was a lot heavier, but now, like I say, it's based off an actual welding helmet.
Right.
It's got two cameras, and one camera basically looks at QR codes on, let's say, a T-fillet, for instance.
Okay.
So they're about 250 mil long. So it's a standard sort of college size.
Test piece.
Yeah, test piece. So it's just covered in these mad blue and green QR codes. And to me or to you, it doesn't look like... If I just went and showed you that, and wouldn't have a clue. You'd notice that it's the shape of a T-fillet, obviously.
Okay.
But when you basically flip the screen down, and you can either just press the trigger, like an either unit off, whatever, and it augments it. So it basically... projects it as a piece of steel or aluminium.
Renders that in front of you into whatever environment you're in.
So the other camera, on the helmet looks at the torch. So we use a Binzel, I think it's a 36 or, it can take any welding torch, basically. Right. And what happens is they've got the welding torch we use is a Binzel one, but if you screw the actual shroud off, it's just a shroud which has got QR codes on. But if you take that off and you can put consumables on, you can go and weld with it. That's okay. So people don't understand the weight and the ergonomics is exactly the same. Because
identical to a proper torch.
Yeah. So the other camera picks that up. So when you bring that into the screen, it augments it as a actual welding nozzle.
This has come on in leaps and bounds then from the one that
I don't think yours even did that.
I think it was almost like a mocked up torch at that point.
No, they've always used ours is, or not ours, the manufacturers always used Binzel real torches. That's one of the main advantages compared to anyone else's. Some people use mock-up torches.
Okay.
And I can only describe it as, when you're moving house and you see a big box and you can't, something's written on it, like books or pillows.
Yeah.
And you don't know, but you can't see that it's on the back. So you prepare your body to think it's books, but it actually says pillows, and you nearly throw the box through the ceiling.
Yeah.
So that's how I compare picking one of these other torches up, because there's nothing inside it.
Yeah, empty.
And it's like the weight's not there, the feel's not there. So yeah, with the one we use, it has a real TIG torch as well.
Right. You use Binzel again for that, just a standard one. Yeah,
but again, you can take the actual AR tip off and put consumables in and weld with that.
Right.
It's just got a Euro connector.
Cool.
The electrode holder, is pretty cool. It's got a motor inside the actual electrode holder. So when you put the electrode in, when you start stick welding, it'll draw it back.
Pulls it backwards out of the pool.
But it'll depend. So you tell the simulator whether you're using a 2.5, a 3.2 or 4 mil, so the motor will turn.
So it knows its burn off speed.
Yeah, and it's calibrated to the length of the rod, so it knows when you fully use the.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the one process. Even though it's probably not, it's not a popular process anymore.
No,
but it's the one process that really impresses people.
Do you think we should be teaching people, like kids, get them on a basic stick welder right from the beginning, and get them laying rods once they've done the VR stuff? Do you think that'd be a good next step?
For me, the simulator should be going into secondary schools, like kids 12, 13 years old.
Really, that young?
Because, I don't know how it is now, but I can't imagine it's that much different from, look at the state of, the level of kids coming through with welding. Everyone knows there's not enough. So that's obviously like what you and Sheldon were talking about, that at a school level, they're not being told welding's a career that you can go into.
Well, I think in Oliver's technology course, I think when he was maybe 13 at high school, I think he cut something out of wood with a bandsaw and painted it. I don't think he was allowed to touch anything with metal. No. They're not allowed to have a lathe in school anymore.
They're probably not allowed to solder anymore, are they?
No, I don't think they are. So their electronics kind of lessons are very basic and normally taking place in science lessons. So it's all it's all breadboard, isn't it? It's just put your pins in.
And that's why we're probably finding the situation that we're at now, because, if you just sat at a desk all day in a classroom, your probably automatic feeling is, well, this is what life is about anyway, and that's why a lot of people are going office jobs.
I remember this kid. We still had a lathe and we still had a milling machine when I went to school. That's how old I am. And I remember somebody putting something into the chuck but not removing the chuck key, and then turning the lathe on and it making this almighty bang and screaming noises that locks the motor up. And the teacher was like, "You nearly killed me." He wasn't bothered that he nearly killed the kid. He was like, "You nearly killed me." But again, it's kids aren't allowed. But can you imagine if we got a proper CNC machine, a proper CNC controlled miller and lathe into a school, and kids understood, like production machining as well as welding. And this sounds good, being able to see it in your own reality, your own place.
Yeah,
that's a next level, isn't it? For virtual and.
Simulations, it's massively important in schools. It's safer. There's no hot work, or there's no fumes. It basically runs off a 13 amp supply.
Yeah,
and it gives them that. It's just a more interactive way of learning.
Do you think it'd be good in an environment for, let's say, we get this into a manufacturer, or we get this into a company that's trying to bring kids up through the ranks? And they have one, and we train somebody up who's a specialist on it to kind of get education in. Is there a possibility to kind of say, well, we make lots of this particular product, so we can now design a program? Yeah, we've already got EWM Titans in here, so we'll design it around 4-stack, so we know the travel speeds and stuff like that. Can we do that and then say, let's pick something out of thin air. Let's say it's a truck body, or it's a barbecue, and they make millions of them. Can we then have software and something built for that?
It's funny that you say barbecue, because me and Alan went to Spain where it's the
On holiday together with Alan.
God no, whoever's listening to this. Well, actually, I think we're going to go back in July.
The airline won't be able to cope with any more fake tan.
So me and Alan went to see the manufacturer back in 2018, and they did that. There was like a conference there, so
right,
and there was a guy who actually he was a representative of the company, but they staged this story quite well, where he was a barbecue manufacturer.
Really?
I don't even know if I've told you the story, but he just said barbecue there. So he said, I produce barbecues. I've got guys welding them, but I'm struggling with quality.
Okay.
I'm also struggling, in terms of training new kids and all that. So what we can offer is it's called an IWS, so an industrial welding service.
Okay.
Or solution, where you basically give us a mock-up of the component, give us weld procedure, give us the parameters, give us a mock-up, and we can make them into the exact same size, specification. So we've already done this.
Right, cool. Interesting.
Give you an example. In Germany, Siemens have basically introduced their own, in their training school, there's a door off the part of a train. Okay. Which they must have had a particular problem with, or there was it was expensive.
Yes.
And I think off the top of my head, the aluminium waste cost was €250,000. And using this technology and this specific coupon or workpiece, whatever you want to call it, it's down to €88,000.
Wow.
Just from the material savings.
And when we're trying to be lean and when we're trying to compete with other parts of the world that can manufacture, it's cheaper than we can at the moment, that kind of saving, that's going to be make or break, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's not just them. I mean, Mercedes-Benz have had components made. So Mercedes in Germany have a mock-up car chassis.
Really?
The same simulator inside in their training school. And the guy or girl will climb into the chassis and actually do welds inside the chassis.
You're probably going to hear that noise of that truck reversing right over the podcast, but it'll stop in a minute. But that's good. And is it only companies like Mercedes at that size that can afford it? Or does it become unaffordable to start having mock-ups made of your own products, or is it something that is quite affordable?
It's quite affordable. We work off a tier system, so we look at, say, tier 4 is relatively simple.
So what's on the tier 4? What do we get in a tier 4 system?
You might have something like, for shipbuilding, just an open route with like maybe a backing strip on, something like that.
Right, okay.
So that's because it's relatively simple. It's a straight line weld, or something, something that's a bit like simple in terms of having to make it.
Okay.
Tier 1, I think there's tier 2, there's parts for tanks being made already. I've got basically all the images and what's being made.
We're talking about army tanks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's truck bodies being made. They had in Essen, there was a car chassis on the stand where there was a specific difficult place to get into weld. And basically what we're looking at now is confined space areas.
Right.
So let's say in ships, submarines, whatever, you can take basically a magnetic strip of this QR coded material and stick it to the inside of the boat, but then it'll put the seam there. So you're essentially taking the simulator into a confined space area.
Is it easy to take the simulator in?
It only weighs 12 kilos.
Right, okay.
So that's 12 kilos with the helmet.
Right.
So it's about the size of a standard wire feed unit.
Okay.
It's a little bit taller.
Right.
So companies we're working with have mock-up areas to prepare apprentices going into the confined space.
Interesting.
So I've got photos of them actually with the student or the apprentice with the solder-matic in the confined space area.
Right.
They're just using T-fillets and
sure, because yeah.
But now, like I say, there's the option of basically taking in this magnetic strip. It just depends on the how specific the company wants to take it, but it can be worked off a subscription basis as well. So if let's say you have a component that you only use for 12 months,
okay,
and you say, well, we don't need this now, then you just stop the subscription.
Right, okay.
It's not like you're paying for it for the rest of your life. You pay for it as long as that component's relevant to your company.
And how does it work with is it a one-off cost and the subscription for the extra stuff, or is it a continuous subscription?
It's like a development cost, which is upfront. And then for basically you get like a license for the duration of your using that, you just pay yearly for that, access to that. But all that comes with training and implementation from me. So I work with close to the manufacturer. They do all the development side.
Right.
I basically then get trained to do it myself, and then I'll go into the end user and train them.
And is this a relationship that you've got in the UK as EWM, or is it an EWM relationship global with this same company?
It started off, it was actually an English guy called Alan Gray. He used to work for EWM, but he actually lives in Germany. He's German speaking. Right. He owned a company called Weld Plus, and he introduced me and Alan in the UK to this company. The reason that sort of the Germans weren't at EWM weren't really involved is because it was down the road from our factory. So anything that they would get in terms of leads or inquiries, they might as well just give it to them anyway, because they're on their doorstep. Okay. But for us being a completely separate entity, we could sort of promote it. So Alan, I remember the first version, Alan got in, he was told not to get it out of the box. Alan being Alan got it straight out of the box and used it. And I sort of walked past and went, what's that? And I was still on the tools at this point.
Okay, yeah.
And he's like, oh, it's a welding simulator. And I was like, that's never going to catch on. You know what I mean? Just from because I'd never seen it before. Right. And I don't know how it came about. I think Alan just said one day, oh, do you fancy having a go at promoting it? Okay. That was probably about 7 years ago now.
Yeah, you've been on with it quite a while now, haven't you?
Yeah. So we've sold God knows how many units all over the UK. We've got the biggest lab. We call them labs. So you've got an augmented lab. And the idea is that you have a classroom filled with simulators, which is like next door to the welding booth. Right. So you can do all in simulation and then go next door and put it into practice. Cool. And I've just finished a 4-week experiment with a big company where we had some brand new kids out of school, gone into apprenticeships. And
16 years old?
Yeah. And they wanted to say, right, let's prove if the simulator works. They'd already bought 2. And I was like, all right, okay. So we'll do it. So they just did a vertical and overhead fillet. I think that's all they were doing. And he said, what I'll do is I'll measure the costs. So the electricity side of it, you can run, I think it's 20 simulators for the price of one 3-phase
welding machine.
So that's massive. You've got the material. On average, it's about 68% savings on consumables and material. It's 56% time reduction. So it's wasted time,
Right, okay.
And then there's the accidents is 88% or something like that, reduction in accidents. Right. So what we did was they basically 4 weeks, I think it was 4 weeks, they were just constantly on the simulator. And then after the end of the 4 weeks, they went into the real booth and they passed a test piece within 1 day.
Within 1 day?
Within 1 day.
And that's God's honest truth.
Yeah, that's what he told me. So I was quite surprised. But what the simulator's doing is it's teaching your muscle memory.
Which is super important in this job.
Yeah, everyone say it so what you've got essentially a torch and there's some guides which tell you your stick out, your travel angle, your work out.
So are they projected? These guides are projected into your vision.
So what you find is for your stick out, there's like a slider which goes up and down. So if you're too close, you'll see it slide towards the front. Right. So you're trying to keep that in this sweet spot, which is green. If you go too close or too far away, it turns red. Okay. And you can actually narrow the tolerances. So if you are a beginner, you can move the stick out quite aggressively. Considerably, If you go to advanced, any movement, and that's what it's doing. It's improving your skill set and your muscle memory, motor skills.
Micro motions, micro control.
And people think, oh, well, I'm not getting the feedback in terms of, the wire or whatever. But I says, yeah, but the angles are still the same. So if you can teach the angles at that point, you're saving yourself all that. When I was at college, like you said earlier, what we should do is get kids on stick welding sets. I was put on a stick welding set by my teacher, who I said earlier.
Which were probably an oil-cooled thing, probably. Or some had a great big knob on front that you turned up. Yeah.
It had Tip-X all over it to see where the sweet spot was and all that. But he had 30 other lads that he had to go and set up. So he said, this is what you do, this angle, strike it.
And you got no time. That was it. That was your introduction to welding.
Away. He said, I'll come back and see you in half an hour.
And you might not have seen him in half an hour.
I didn't see him in half an hour. I know So the first thing I did was I touched the rod down on the bit of material and it stuck.
And it stuck to it.
And I was like, trying to get it off, So the simulator can basically, like, it can reduce all of that time. It can reduce when you first start welding, let's say MIG welding, some people are really stressed. Their angles, they're stood too straight on. By the time they get halfway through the weld, it's
a completely different angle altogether.
If you can teach that at the beginning by saving all of these, the material costs, gases, even PPE and grinding discs, all sorts, is all factored in.
Yeah. I never thought about that. The grinding discs and the sanding disc side of it, and prep time of your material, you're going to save that as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
Which is vital. Because it all goes in the bin.
Yeah.
All that stuff just goes in the bin.
And at 16, like I didn't care who was paying for it.
No.
So if I made a mistake, I did two things. I either put it in my mate's bin next door, so he got the rap for it, or I ran to the scrap bin while the teacher wasn't looking, threw it and buried it because I was too embarrassed. So, and then I got a new bit of plate and then tried again. And now that I'm promoting this and I'm speaking to these teachers and they're under, like, the budgets, some of them are...
They don't have any budgets, do they? There's no money in these colleges.
Some of the test pieces are literally 100 mil long.
Because they can't afford the material.
Exactly. And, who's that hindering at the end of the day? It's the kids. The kids.
The kids, yeah.
Because he's going to say... You're going to go into the workplace. I'm spot on welding for 100 mil. And then after that,
maybe 80.
Yeah, he's going to be uncomfortable. And it's not the way to teach.
100 mil is no kind of reasonable idea. Is it? Not whatsoever.
I understand from the college's point of view. If they haven't got the money, they haven't got the money, and so people will say, "Oh well, how much is a simulator?" Yes, it's a lot of money, but if you're saving 68% on consumables, it'll pay for itself. Another advantage of it is taking it to schools. So colleges go into schools all the time. And if you take a simulator in this, I've helped loads of colleges on open days at some of that offer. And, if they buy one, I'll say, if I'm available, I'll support you.
Brilliant.
So you can see the level of enthusiasm. I did an open day at a big company. So this wasn't even a college, it was an industrial company in, I'll not say where it is. I'll keep that close to me.
Yeah, keep it quiet.
But basically there was 600 guests. There was three groups of 200. And it was all to basically say, this is who we are. We need X amount of apprentices when the next, come work for. But they had everyone there, every part of the business. So the machining side, the design side, and the welding side invited me to basically have my simulator because I'm in talks with them anyway.
Fantastic.
And I was the busiest person there by far. And I had people coming from the machine side. And
do you think this is because the system that you're using is so cool and this reality aspect of it is so...
It's given them like I say, what I didn't have at school was, these career advisors. Well, what do you want to do? I don't know. I'm not really that great with maths and English. I want to work with my hands.
Yeah.
All right. Have a think about what you want to do. So that's
it.
That's my career advice.
That's it. That's what you get.
That's what I got. And if it hadn't have been for, so my stepdad worked for, he was in the sort of agricultural and grounds care business, and he said, "Why don't you go to John Deere for your?" It was my work experience. You did 2 weeks at school.
Yeah.
So I went there and I ended up, they offered us a job out of that.
Fantastic.
Without that, I don't know what I really would have done.
Well, that's really important because Oliver's, doing his work experience this year, ended up going to a tennis club because I've said, you work here an awful lot anyway.
Yeah.
You know what it's about and, you're good at dodging the hammer by now, especially when you forget your PE kit, but so go somewhere else. And he asked for help at school and they were like, there's a list of schools that will take you.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want to be a teacher. Yeah, but there's a list of schools that will take you on your work experience. And he's like, I do not want to be a teacher. So it's almost as if schools don't really care about this whole... I did 3 weeks of work experience. Oliver's getting 5 days.
It's not enough.
It's not enough.
What experience? I got 2 weeks. And you know, by the end of the second week, I was falling asleep in the van. I was knackered.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. This is real world.
Yeah.
You know, in 5 days, by the time you get into it, you're out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, and I don't know, is it a cost-cutting measure? Is it... they're generally not interested? I don't know, because like I say, it's been a long time since I was at school.
I think this is a kind of conversation that Sheldon needs to be having with those higher up people, especially educational people. And you know, because obviously it's people like you that the young kids are really going to aspire to be like.
Yeah.
And you go in with all this kit, Sheldon can initiate those conversations and say, why are you not talking about it?
Yeah.
Why are you not talking about... It sounds like, I don't think... From what you've just said there, and from what the experience that Oliver's got, I kind of think it's not anything's pushed.
No.
I don't think anything's pushed. There's a list of places you can go for your work experience, and I think that's what they're given. And then
where's that coming from? At the same time, is that coming from a government level, or you know, because
do they think we're just going to be a money company that just, you know, like a finance business? Are we just going to be a finance world? I hope not, because from what I can see at the moment, there's an awful lot of interest in these real jobs again, these hands-on jobs. And I think now's the time, with all the technology and the way that everything's going, for everybody to really jump on board and think, you know, it's a really cracking industry to be part of at the moment.
I sort of say it's a society and generational change. So the reason that, you know, that the welding industry's got, you know, not a lot of attention, it's because it's not attractive, you know, in the way that kids are glued to their phones.
Yes.
Guarantee there's no welding videos popping up on Instagram or anything like that, which is remotely interesting to them.
To those, yeah.
90% of the time, it's going to be an influencer who's selling something.
Going to put a little bit of weld on like that, and it's going to look good through his lens.
Not just a general influencer who's selling anything, you know.
Right, okay.
Maybe, but they'll see that as, you know, look, it's not that difficult to make a lot of money these days, and if you get... You know, like, look at these YouTubers. I'm making a massive amount of money.
Millions, billions, yeah.
And if I have kids, they ain't watching any YouTube, like, because it's just destroying the brain and the get up and go of generations.
Outlook of doing other stuff as well.
I don't think COVID helped. You know, there's got to be a generation out there now that's massively been, you know, affected by.
I think we were lucky when the nuclear industry said, Barry, you're not going on lockdown, you stay open, we'll look after you, whatever you need to do, but we need you, and if you become poorly, we've got a bed for you. That's what I was told. We were lucky in the fact that because I had that letter, and because Tiff, Oliver's mum, works for the NHS, Oliver had to go to school. I don't think it would have damaged him as much as other kids, but there's definitely still something happened in that period. I feel really fortunate that I was told that we had to stay open, because that meant he had to go to school. He had a little bit of normality. Those kids that were told to just stay at home, log on and do the homework in a very short period of time.
Imagine the damage that's done to their social skills. And
it comes back to that conversation that we had with Mark from Pullman's, where he said people were paid to stay at home. And that plays into the other part of it, where we're struggling to get people to want to work 5 days a week.
Well, I was listening to a podcast not long ago about the damage that you'll feel. No one ever felt it. No one, everyone came out of lockdown. That's when the depression spikes and all that happened, because it's a delayed onset of what traumatic experience everyone had just been through. So everyone is like feeling the effects still of that, because they've missed out on so
feeling it now, and it's just kicking in for some people.
It's, I can't remember what podcast it was, one of Bartlett's, I think. They said it happens after. It's like post-traumatic stress type thing.
Very similar.
So, you know, that's going to affect a whole generation.
And when I spoke about that with Mark from Pullman's, he were like, that's a big period of time.
Yeah, it's massive.
That's a huge period of time, is that generation.
Yeah.
So I think we've got a lot of looking after of people to do as well. And but I think this industry, like you say, we've got a lot at the moment that we can really talk about to entice these kids, but it's getting that opportunity to entice them, isn't it, that we need to do. It sounds like you guys did a really good job at Mach with that.
Yeah, I mean, see, I think going back to when we had that open day of 600 guests, I sort of called back in and said, how was it? Was it successful? He says, I've never had such an influx of interest in the welding. So loads of people signed up for the welding after that. Good. There was loads of parents there and they were asking, is it welding the right industry? I says, at the moment, people are screaming for welders. So the fact that this huge company is on your doorstep, and she had 2 sons with her, I says, I would have jumped at the chance to be in this area with this company.
It's also a really cool job as well. Like you're melting metal together with a really sexy piece of kit, and you get to wear some cool gear. Like if you look at the 3M helmets now, so, and they're connected via Bluetooth to apps on your phones and stuff, so you can start saving your own profiles for your own color profiles and stuff like that. That's got to be another thing that's really cool about the gear that we've got now.
I think that's what manufacturers are sort of clicking onto now, that people are using their phones more than ever. So if you can incorporate that into their work, and I think the manufacturer of those simulators, they're in America as well, and I've seen basically a classroom with a MIG torch, but it had a bracket where they put their phone onto the back of the MIG torch.
Right.
And then it's projected on the screen. So they've noticed that kids are using their phones, and this is a way of using their phones, so they've still got that. It's like a safety blanket.
Yeah.
You see, when you texted us the other day when I was sat outside the barbers, I was texting you, and then I looked up, and I was like, one woman pushing a pram, phone in hand. She wasn't talking to the kid. She wasn't looking where she was going. No. And then I was like, that's really bad. Then I looked across the road, and there was another kid, just random bloke just walking, not looking where he's going. And it's like, we're just a big nation of zombies addicted
We do at the moment.
My sister is bad for it with what she was with when my niece came around. She'd be holding my niece in one arm and texting in the other.
Right.
And I barely look at my phone these days. Like,
especially outside working hours.
Well, if you text us outside working hours, then I'll look at it.
So when I started this podcast, I never, ever imagined it would have become what it has, but what more in such a short period of time. So this week, I want to show my appreciation and thank you to EWM. Anybody who knows me knows I just live and breathe the EWM product. Where metal is inseparably connected anywhere in the world, the probability is rather high that they are involved. If you want to know more about any of the EWM products, please reach out to myself at barry@mswelding.co.uk or contact EWM direct via the EWM website, but state Bazza sent you from the Weld Like Bazza podcast. I feel honoured.
Well, we're getting to a point now we're texting at weekends and all
that. I know, that's really cool.
Talking about podcasts and that. But
did you get out on your bike this weekend?
I did, mate. I was out last night. I was out the night before.
Is that becoming an everyday thing now? The weather's getting better.
I wouldn't. I try and get on it at least 4 days a week, and then I run 1 day a week and have a couple of days off.
So is yours a composite frame, your bike, or is it a welded one like Alan? Because Alan got a titanium.
He got titanium. Yeah. So mine's full carbon. Yeah.
Right.
I'm still paying for that. Yeah.
But what's the advantages of full carbon over like Alan's titanium? Is it just a choice?
I mean, the carbon's just...
Did you say yours does like 70 miles an hour or something?
The quickest I've done on mine's 62. And
20, my dad had a moped that did that.
25 mil tyres, thick.
Really?
I was going downhill. I've had some bad accidents as well. But yeah, that's the one thing that's never phased us. If I've come off that, I crashed on a roundabout. It's mad. I was telling my apprentice, not my apprentice, but Ben the other day, I've crashed, my dad's crashed, and my granddad's crashed on the same roundabout.
On bikes?
Yeah, on bikes. It should be named Hermiston Roundabout. I'm yet to speak to the local council about that. But I crashed within 6 miles of starting the ride. I think I broke 2 ribs. I lost all the skin on my legs. And I got back on my bike and did 50 miles with my mates. Because it's the adrenaline, obviously, I was off work for a week after I was buckled. Johnny had to bring me laptop to us. I had my arm up in a sling,
Absolutely hammered from it.
Skin took weeks to grow back, but I literally got back the week and I was doing the same.
Was it down to the bone then?
Not down to the bone, but I was probably, like a 3rd-degree burn type thing. But the weekend after, I bandaged it up and I was back out. It's like, when you watch these Tour de France guys, they're like serious.
They're insane, them.
Yeah.
You want to talk about somebody who's hard? And I look at Oliver and the people he trains with, they're insane.
Unreal, mate.
Like they get run over by their teammates and their enemies and they get back on the bike and try and get it over the finish line. They're nuts.
Geraint Thomas broke his pelvis on the first day of the Tour de France years and years ago, and he rode 3 weeks with a broken pelvis. They lifted him onto his bike, pushed him, and said, right, see you in 6 hours. There, Philippe Gilbert, Belgian kid, went over a bridge and they showed his knee after, and he rode the rest of the race competitively, and he had broken kneecap. But it's mental. I don't know, like you watch football now and all that, and they're not...
Dive about a bit, don't they?
Yeah, just a bit.
Cycling's, it's nuts. Cyclers are nuts.
It's do you know, people would say I'm an idiot for the way I go downhill, and I quite like that name.
Yeah, cool.
I think it terrifies my lass that I'll come down. I was, I nearly hit this car the day. It was such a buzz. And it's just like, you know what I mean? But I've been hit by 2 cars now, and I got up and I was all right. But the faster I can go, so I was in Mallorca last year, going downhill, down mountains, serious mountains, and it's just like, it's something
on
like,
the same bike.
So I rented a bike over there.
Right, okay.
It's not like I was familiar with it, but you get used to it in 5 minutes, and then flew down Sac Calobra, which is basically a 10-mile mountain. Flew down it and climbed all the way back up it. It's like, it's the best thing ever. And people will hate cyclists, but they're probably people that's from a built-up area where it's affecting their commute.
Really, really bad.
Where, like, country roads, you never see a car, so, yeah.
It kind of takes me back to, I think I was about 3 years old, and the house that we lived in at the time was on a really, really steep hill. And I remember this day, it was sepia tone in my vision, in my memory. Dad was working on the car outside on the street, very 70s, early 80s picture in my head. And I had this little 3-wheeler trike, not quite as fast as your machine. And I thought it'd be really cool to kind of push it up this hill, really big, horrible hill. Pushed it up. My mum's probably in the garden with my sister. Dad's out fixing the car. And I thought, right, I'll come down the hill then. Came down the hill, front wheel came off, smashed all my face in, ripped all the skin off my face. My mum carried me in. She showed me a picture of myself. She went, look what you've done to yourself. 10 minutes after I did it again.
Nah, you're not bothered.
No.
And I'm still like that, because, as kids, we were like made of rubber. And
yeah.
I think I'm still like that in some ways.
A bit elastic.
Aye.
I can tell there's no wrinkles on your skin whatsoever. You've obviously got the fountain of youth around the back of EWM in Morpeth.
I got ID'd for alcohol. Well, I've stopped drinking now. I stopped drinking 4 months ago. But before Christmas, I went to the Sainsbury's and tried to buy a bottle of rum. And the guy said, have you got any ID? I said, I'm not being funny, mate, but I'm 32. And he was like, nah, but it's policy. I was like, fair enough, there's my ID. And he went, guess how old I am? And I looked at him, I went, I don't know, 28, 29. He went, I'm 17. I was like, mate, you've had a hard paper round.
Wow.
And he ID'd me as a 17-year-old. Oh, you got some nerve on you, haven't you? But
what a compliment there.
I don't know how I've got.
I don't know what you and Johnny and Alan are drinking up there.
Just the water, mate.
Speaking of which, how do you like your hydrogenated water from my hydrogenator?
It's absolutely delicious. I feel.
Don't it taste different?
It does taste different.
Like Oliver thought I were nuts. He was like, you, right? He said, I'm not being funny, Dad. You started this podcast. You're drinking hydrogenated water out of a cell that you're messing about with. He said, you're absolutely nuts. He went, I don't know what planet you're on anymore.
Everyone says, I think they're saying the same thing about me now because I'm just addicted to like these podcasts and lifestyle benefits and everything. You're probably the same, since your dad passed.
Definitely.
You want to prolong your life as long as you can, and
I think that came across in my last one with Andy's Man Club. Like, it was so easy for things to get down the wrong path, but now I'm back on the right path. It's like hydrogenating my water, trying to get more in than I need.
It makes such a difference in terms of lifestyle choices. So, like, the way the food that we're eating and the water we're drinking and all that, like, it's for me personally, it's like made my anxiety's gone now.
This is
gone.
interesting.
So I was buckled for most of my life with anxiety.
Right, so are we talking like from a teenage kid or...
Probably since 12-year-old.
So that's young to realise that you've... So this is strange because I also remember being taken to doctors, telling my mum that I didn't feel right. Mum not really knowing, and I'd have sleepless nights. I'd stand on the steps against the wall as a kid, too scared to go downstairs because I was I should have been in bed.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be in bed. So that'd have been about 12.
I've been like that. And to be honest, up until last year, I got to a point where I couldn't go to, say, I do loads of traveling with work.
Yeah.
And I walk into a customer's place and I know that it's work related, so I can talk to them about, general stuff and all that. But it's just when you take us out of that environment, I couldn't even go to sit and have a coffee by myself in a coffee shop. Now I can. It's mental, and that's all from 4 months ago, and it's
quitting the alcohol,
no alcohol, and changing, eating better food.
Did you drink a lot?
Not often, not every weekend, but when I did, it was you'd be out for 2 or 3 days, so I'd binge,
big binge,
and then I'd be depressed for 3 or 4 days after that. And
I felt the depression worse, so I did start going out again a couple of years ago when I became single. I did start going out and partying a little bit. And I could kind of handle the 1 and 2 day hangovers because I didn't do it all the time. It's after we lost Dad and I started drinking to kind of numb that pain a little bit at home, even if it was just a 1 or 2. It seemed to be an accumulated depression. So you get to a point where you feel really, really crap about yourself by the time you get to the end of the week, and you feel that you've done nothing wrong. You've tried to do everything right, but there's this underlying thing that you've been having to have a couple of beers or a couple of ciders to try and numb that pain. Since I've kind of said I'm tipping everything away, there was a point this week when I thought I might just go get a couple of tins of cider, and I didn't. I've not done it. Felt great that morning when I woke up.
It doesn't do anything for you, Like you're speaking of, about Andy's Man Club and all that with that numbing the pain, but you're making yourself worse.
Completely.
And I was just out with 2 lads last night on the bikes, and we were talking about stopping the drinking and all that, and James, my older mate, was like saying, it's and I was like, James, it's been the easiest thing I've ever done because it was the right point of my life
to do it.
Yeah, I've tried to knock the alcohol on there, but I used to go. It's the environment and not peer pressure, but you always feel like I don't want to be like the weird one stood with a Coke.
Dedicated driver.
I'm more than happy. I went out with my lass and 2 of her mates in Edinburgh a couple of weeks ago. They live up there, so we go and stay with them and visit them. We were out at 3 o'clock in the morning. I didn't have a drop of alcohol.
That's really cool. I like that.
I've been the most difficult thing wasn't about giving it up. It was learning to be sociable without it.
Learning to be normal.
Yeah,
just be yourself.
Because I think her family will probably say, I was always I was a nutter when I was drunk. I was centre of attention.
Yeah.
Taking that away from me, it's like, people are like, oh, what's up with him? As if there's something wrong.
Okay.
But now I'm just like, I've learned that, I'm all right, mate. I'll just watch all you lot be an idiot and have a headache the next day. I'm going to get up and go on my bike.
Yeah.
So that was, I don't bang on and say, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. But
I think that plays into the part of proving that the industry's cool as well, doesn't it? That there's cool people like you and me that are into cycling and running and training in the gym and doing really cool things with our kids, like Oliver's martial arts and stuff, and being able to live a really good, healthy life. And that career plays into that massively, I think.
I think it's only benefited my career in terms of the productivity levels and all that sort of stuff.
I wonder if that is part of it. We look at the 1980s. I watched This Is Britain with Oliver the other night. Really old film. You look at the 80s, you look at the cars, you look at what our dads did in the 80s, not mine particularly, but the majority of, went to the pub after work every night. If you were a welder, you looked a particular way. I think those days are long gone. Look at you and Johnny now, like Geordie boys. Do you still send your application into Geordie Shaw?
No.
Did Johnny apply?
No.
Did you apply?
Johnny couldn't get in there. He's got the personality of an ironing board.
He never even reads my emails. It always comes back message.
He can't read. That's why.
Is that the problem?
He's a welder, mate. He can't read.
We're painting a bad picture now.
No. I don't know. Because when we're at Mach, the German Martin came over, and he's like an older guy. He's like, oh, we've known him for 10 years now.
He's very cool, isn't he?
Martin's like, oh, I can't wait to have a beer with you guys tonight. And we were like, oh, Martin, we don't drink. And he was like, what? He found it really weird.
Right, okay.
And so and he's like, oh, well, Johnny will have a beer. I says, no, Johnny doesn't drink.
Has he stopped the drinking too?
Pretty much. And then Ben's 25, I think. He's the exact same as me. So me and Ben always have these conversations about what food. I was like, Ben, what you got for your dinner the day? Oh, I've got this, I've got that. I was just like, we've been out in the drink. No, I haven't. So he's like 100 days, no drink.
Cool.
I'm a bit more than him.
Alan never really drunk anyway, did he? He has a social drink with his wife every now and again.
I think he's an espresso martini kind of guy. So,
yeah, James Bond wannabe. Batman, isn't it? Alan's Batman. Don't they want to be Batman?
I don't know. Batman, James Bond, I'm not sure, but
Batman.
He's not. He's never really been. I mean, me and him were laughing the other day because when we went out in Spain, we had a good drink.
Right.
To the point where he was actually waking me up in the morning, like banging on my hotel door. And I came to the door, I was like, what's going on? He's like, he stood at the door with his suitcase, and I'm like, all right, I better get ready here.
Better get myself together.
But he was only fresh because he fell asleep in Lineker's in Marbella, so in a booth. But he's so focused on what he's doing with his shows and that. So
yeah.
Alcohol to him it's no
forbidden. You can't have any added calories like that. It's just going to.
I took a lot of advice from him in terms of like the nutritional side and all that. He really knows
his stuff. He's really
so disciplined with that sort of stuff, and I never understood it until I don't weigh me food out like he did that, but I just watch what I do with it. You know,
I dated a female bodybuilder when I was younger, and she
didn't look like Alan, did you?
A little bit, a bit taller. She used to have really, really long curly hair, and people used to drive past her going, "Get some straighteners!" Like that's how bad her hair was. But she was like built like an absolute doorway. She was like completely natural, like Alan. She'd get up at 2:00 in the morning and make herself oat pancakes, and then go back to bed. And she was just like, I think she wore the organisation that she competed in. I think she became second in the world that particular year, and she came first in the UK. She's insane, but like the discipline and getting the skin to that texture level where it's like onion skin, where you can see through everything. But fitness was her life. It's what she also did for a living.
I think people massively underestimate fitness. Well,
I wouldn't like to be an unfit welder. I'd definitely not like to be an unfit engineer. My load bank and my toolbox were an absolute ton.
When I was in BA last, I had a meeting with Tom Milson. He'll be over the moon now because I've mentioned his name. He's a big fan of the podcast. So me and Tom were talking about the same things. Me and him were talking about keto diets, and John Barlow from True Flame was stood there. John's so not interested.
Like John's on fish and chips.
Hiya,
John.
John loves a shipyard ale. You know, he can't wait for a beer. And me and Tom were just like talking about keto fats and all this sort of stuff, and how much energy we all had and how productive we were. And I was saying, and John was like, oh, I wish I could get into that, but I can't be bothered and I'm too old for it. And I said, Johnny, honestly, you're not.
Definitely not too old.
You can reverse any sort of damage you've done with the alcohol side. Within 2-3 weeks of being sober and eating well, you'll feel 10 years younger.
I think one of the most motivational pictures that I still see is the one that Alan posts every year. Him and his daughter, where before he started training, when he was never fat, Alan.
No,
he was never fat at all, but he was soft. He looked soft.
Yeah.
And now you see the same picture. Like I think he did it a couple of years ago, and he's just chiseled like onion skin.
So like my last Beth showed me. She says, "Oh, I found this photo of you." She says, "You look like proper tanned. You look really good." This is from a few years ago. And she showed me, and all I could say was, I look puffy. My face was like, I've lost nearly 26 pounds in weight this year, over the past year. So I'm down to like 11.7. And someone said there was a day like, "Oh, you look ill," and I was like, if I was overweight and you said that to me, I says there'd be uproar. But now, because you're probably
looking lean.
We're the minority, really, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know, but I was a bit like...
I feel better for being lean.
100%. I mean, none of my clothes fit us anymore. Like, I've dropped 2 waist sizes. Like,
but that's a good thing.
I think I just got rid of the crap I didn't need.
Yes.
So I was still cycling probably 3,000 miles when I was 13 stone 3.
Really?
Yeah. So, but I'm 6'1", 6'1".
Tall lad.
13 stone is not overweight at all for that height.
No, not for you.
But now I'm the same height and I'm 11 stone 7.
So people instantly think that you're poorly or there's something wrong.
But it obviously benefits me for being the lighter I can to climb hills and all that. So, I got a fright when I seen that photo, even though I was probably at my stage of drinking, and
yes,
I'd just come back from holiday in Dubai or wherever, so I drank a lot. And yeah, I was like, I'm so glad now the way I am.
I have those conversations with people that don't see me very often. Oh, you look poorly. And recently I've had you've dropped some size. And I'm like, well, I don't bench 50s anymore.
Yeah.
You know, that's not the kind of training that I'm into anymore.
Yeah.
I don't get up at night and have half a chicken.
Yeah.
You know, I eat a completely different kind of diet and I'm really happy. And I became a little bit of an hypochondriac when my dad died, and I went to doctors and I didn't feel well. And there were loads of other reasons for it. I had some blood tests and they called me in, and the one thing he says, you're completely fine. You're not going to hope, today you're not going to die of the thing that your dad had. You've not got the thing that your dad had. You've not got the problems that your dad had. He said, but your vitamin B12 is like, it was me vitamin D. He said, it's like 5,000% more than it should be. And I was like, right, okay. And he said, do you take any vitamins? He said, can you come and see me? And I booked an appointment. I took an Aldi bag full of stuff, and he just looked at me, and he was like that. No, he was shaking his head. And I went, but ultimately, am I really doing myself any harm taking a little bit of extra vitamin D through the winter when it's cold, and I work in a workshop and I'm not getting any daylight?
Sun,
You know, and Joe Rogan said a brilliant comment. He said, yeah, those doctors that kind of say you're above your markers should be this. He said, that's for normal people. He went, I don't want to be normal. I don't. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Do you know Gary Brecker? He's on.
No.
He's on Diary of CEO quite often. He talks about vitamin D because there's something like there's like a deficiency of like 95%, and like you say, they think that seasonal depressional stuff, that's sad. Like they think that's because obviously the winter you've got no sunlight, and the deficiency of the vitamins is making you depressed basically. So he recommends getting the highest dose of, and that's the one vitamin everyone. From what I've said, or what I've seen, or what I've researched, loads of people have said you're wasting your money on loads of other stuff, but they all say that vitamin D. My
doctor's telling me not to take any.
This is the thing. I mean, you never know what to believe now, but like some people will say, I don't take protein shakes or anything like that. I just take like natural stuff. But
yeah.
I don't know. A lot of people are disagreeing with even doctors now. It's like, who do you believe?
It's really difficult. But I think you're going to be much more able as an engineer or a sales guy, because you'll spend a lot of hours in the car like me.
Yeah.
I prefer to be fit doing that.
Yeah.
Than being overweight or a little bit bloated or not looking after my diet as such.
Yeah.
And I think it all plays a part. This industry is really cool now. Look at the role models we've got, like you and Johnny and Alan.
People probably think that we're really weird because, like I say, the society is it's more acceptable to be drinking and socialise.
The UK, yeah, I had that pointed out to me by Oliver's mum because she's Spanish. She went, the UK drinks. When you date somebody in the UK, they're going to drink.
Wherever you go in the world, everyone says you're the stupid English guy.
Yeah. And
the Germans just call us island apes, I think.
Oliver said, I really want to go to Benidorm. Obviously, he goes to these amazing places in Spain because he's from Spain.
Tell him not to go to Benidorm.
And I wanted to take him, and I kind of said to him the other night, I think it's just going to be full of people out on the piss.
I went last year. It was the worst experience of my life.
Right, well, we're not taking him then. I say, Uncle Callum.
It's awful. I mean, so look, if that's what you're into, it's full of Brits, but if that's what you're into, go for it. But honestly, it's like walking 30 years into the past. It was,
You live far from Blackpool.
I don't live far from Asherton, which has got to be up there with one of the worst places to live in the UK. And it just felt like Asherton, but 25 degrees
right.
heat.
Yeah.
So And when you see, I mean, I've been the idiot jumping around and all that. Went for a stag do, so I drank a lot, but I came back from them like that isn't one place I'll never go again.
You'll never go back.
Nah, never.
Well, he's actually changed his mind. He said, "Let's get the surfboard and let's go stay in the log cabins."
If his mum's Spanish, there's so many better places in Spain to go.
I think he wants to do it so he can go back to his mates and say, "I've been to Benidorm."
Yeah, there's time for that. Like I say,
wait till I'm not about.
I would imagine he's going to be on a stag do at one point in his life.
Looking at those boxing videos of him recently, I think, I'm dreading the day.
That's the thing, but he's got that level of discipline now anyway, hasn't he? So
yeah,
God, if anyone starts on him now, they're going to be in trouble. Like,
yeah, I completely agree.
You'll be in trouble soon if you start.
No, when he said I'm going to football with my mates last week, I went, do you want some money? Do you want some money to go with? And no, Dad, I don't need any money. I was just thinking back to a conversation that I had with Alan, and Alan were going, soon he's going to be going, Dad, give me 50 quid.
Yeah,
I'll get it in now. So is there been any good things come from the Mach show other than what we spoke about already? EWM being there, like, it looks like it was a force to be reckoned with this year. I was so proud to be number one. I do live and breathe EWM. Everybody knows that. If you chopped me down the middle, it'd say it through the core. And when I saw the picture of the stand, I thought, this looks really impressive. This is something else.
Yeah. I mean, we've got to obviously dissect all the inquiries. We've got a massive influx of inquiries from it.
Mainly on
TIG speed. TIG speed was massive.
Interesting.
Massive.
You think that's because of a skill loss, or something that's missing at the minute?
Potentially, and just look at what I was telling you before we started the podcast. It was someone had saved like 3 hours of an 8-hour job by using TIG speed to conventional TIG. So that side of it, yes, it does de-skill it a little bit, but at the same time, I think it's just something that people don't see every day.
I don't think it de-skills it, does it? Again, it's learning a different skill set.
Yeah.
I want to just,
you're essentially just using, you've got now one hand that you're like... Well,
you can use that for holding yourself up while you're on a 36-inch boat, can't you?
Exactly.
Yeah, prime example. But TIG speed, and it's hot wire and cold wire, the EWM system, isn't it? So cold wire,
you can have the hot wire version and you can just turn the hot wire off, or you can have a purely just cold wire.
Advantages of which is hot wire.
Well, you get faster travel speeds.
Because you're preheating the wire.
Yeah.
And have we got up to 50 amps on that?
No, it's more than that. I think it's 180 amps.
Much more than that. It's going to be liquid when it comes out, though, isn't it?
It's pretty...
And it's just putting current on before, on the wire, as well as what's on the job.
Yeah. I mean, the most common ones, Johnny's the expert in TIG speed, but the most common...
He's agreed to come on, hasn't he, Johnny? He's going to come on.
That's going to be a good episode. Like, I was talking to him the other night after one of the days at Mach, and I was texting you, and he was like, who are you texting? I was like, Barry, we're talking about the podcast. And he's like, all right. I says, you should come on. And he was like, had that moment where I was like, he's either going to tell us where to go or you'll... And he says, I would,
Brilliant.
But he'll have to have some media training before he comes on.
I'll leave that to you. I'll give you a manual. Because he can't read. So obviously you're going to have to come up with a learning method for him.
Like you said, I think that will go full on Joe Rogan. I don't know what we'll talk about, but...
We're going to have to get my mum to come in as a mediator, just so she can say, you've been here 7 hours now, you've all got to go home.
She might need to be a referee. But yeah, Johnny's the expert in TIG speed. So he'd probably say the cold wire oscillation version's the most popular.
Right. Is that due to cost?
It's about $2,000 cheaper, I think. But it's like...
It's not a lot. It's not a lot in the grand scheme of what you get from it. No, but
it's like, again, it's... With anything, it's application.
Yeah, so dependent.
If he's not going to say you need hot wire when you don't need it.
Yeah.
As a sales guy, you could probably say, Johnny, you're talking us out of it, but we're not going to...
That's never been the ethos of what we do at EWM anyway.
No, never. Whatever the application is, you present the right solution. I
remember doing some open route stuff in pipe, and I didn't have the right attachment. It was very early days. It's before Johnny joined. So I modified what came from Germany. I did some open route in 4-inch carbon pipe. It was like the easiest thing you could potentially ever want to do.
Yeah.
You got to get the setup right, but we've had probably 10 years of evolution of adapters and systems since then. So I've not seen it recently, but the hot wire being it, like you say, getting travel speed up, fantastic for loads of different applications where TIG is essential.
Yeah, the fact that, you can add it onto any TIG set, really. So, people who haven't even got EWM can basically use that It's just as an add-on. All we need to know is the start-stop signal from the whatever unit.
They're easy to do.
So there was quite a lot of people there saying, "Oh, I wish I'd seen this. I could have." I was like, "Well, what you got now?" And they were like, "Oh, I've got this. I've got that. I'll put it on."
We can do a bit of an interface for you.
So we've got loads of demos lined up off the back of that.
That's cool.
So that was really popular. Obviously, the Cobot was quite popular. The new Pico TIG,
which is an amazing machine, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Have you seen my stainless welding with that?
A few people have messaged us about that, saying, "What's Barry using on that?" I was like, "Pico TIG," and they went, "There's absolutely no way that's a Pico TIG."
Insane. I'm not going to give away many secrets, but that out of the box, a little bit of tweaking, not too much tweaking either, not too much manipulation. Just that's how it is.
Yeah, the multi-voltage version is out. Pretty well, you can get it as a.
Is it going to be a wide voltage version? Is it so it just works on a wide range?
So it's 240 or 110, but
right.
The standard version, what you've got now, it'll eventually just be that'll be the multi-voltage. There's no different part number. There's no extra price.
Cool.
You can connect to that.
That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. There's a couple of other things that's going to be coming out which I can't really speak about yet, but like I say, the simulator was really popular. We had it on a big, like 50-inch screen, so you can just project that image.
Right.
Everyone around can
just watching what's going on.
It just attracts people.
And can you do that if you bought a set? Like if I bought one, could I do that as well on a big TV?
There's a HDMI port on the back.
Oh, cool.
So there's HDMI. There's a port for like an auxiliary speaker,
right?
So you can really crank the noise up. There's speakers.
So it sounds like you're actually doing it.
There's speakers in the helmets, so the operators can hear the sounds. The sound changes whether you're in like a short circuit or spray arc. The sound changes.
Does it change as you move the arc length and stuff as well?
Yeah. So you can. There's loads of settings, but it essentially on the screen it looks like, and on the front panel there's the wire feed speed setting you can change, or you can change it by amperage. There's a 4T and a 2T setting, and you can change the shade of the helmet as well.
That's wicked.
I know.
Really cool.
It's actually got a zoom function as well, so even if because one of the other good sort of features of it's teaching so we had a presentation years ago, and the main problem for welders being off is musculoskeletal, so the back problems. It's not burns or anything like that. And it's probably because you're in an awkward position. So even bench work, you're probably, putting a lot of strain on your back.
Not in a very good position for yourself. Yeah,
so the simulator is good for sort of training the bad habits out.
That's good. That's interesting.
And it'll tell you if you're too close. So if you're too close, you know that the arch in your back is going to be quite aggressive. It'll tell you if you're too far away. So it's doing good things for your ergonomics, but also for the ideal position of the cameras.
Really cool.
But if you're getting into a position, everyone's eyesight's different. Like I said, there's the bracket for the little cheetah lenses. There's also a zoom function. So if you're like, I want to be closer, I'd stay where you are, just zoom it in and then go.
I think we'll have to make a proper video about it and have a proper laugh at me falling about with this helmet on.
I was thinking about it when I was on the way down watching the Joe Rogan. You should probably get like a YouTube
proper thing set up and
not that far now from the studio.
Take MS Welding TV to the next level. It was quality in the day. Was MS Welding TV? I just didn't have time to do what with it. But
I haven't got that sort of entertainment sort of trait that you've got. Like,
it's just Oliver's just like, you're nuts. He says you talk to yourself far too much, Dad. It's part of the job.
Does he sort of like get the whole podcast thing, or is he not in that point of his life? Because I didn't appreciate it until not that long
only
ago.
Because it's always been something that's gone on. We've always like messed about with radio, done DJ live streams. I still, as a hobby, this is like completely off the cuff, but as a hobby, something outside of work, I occasionally still DJ, and I DJ'd for Red Bull a couple of weeks ago. And so I told somebody so normally when somebody's got an hobby and they do it occasionally, they do it for the mate's party or somebody's barbecue. Says, you DJ at a Red Bull event?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I did. Red Bull were there. It was a climbing event. And I took Oliver along. So he likes it. He enjoys it. And he likes, what I enjoy about it is it's a different environment. The people there were climbers.
Yeah.
Everybody's climbing. Everybody's into fitness.
Yeah,
you get a massive variety of people.
You're
families.
around people that's got like that. They're all that common interest of something good, other than like we were talking about earlier, the negative side of it.
So no alcohol. Everybody's there to compete. It was a competition. And Oliver's just like, this is actually really cool. We got some free food vouchers and stuff, and he gets to talk to different people, meet different people, but watch these awesome events. And the event where we were has got it's a replica. I think it's a replica of the wall that's going to be used in the Olympics.
Right.
So it's got a massive overhang and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like, these people are insane. They're like throwing themselves about on the fingertips. And he's like, and I'm stood in DJ booth with my dad, and I'm meeting cool people. So I like to. So he does get it, and he listens to podcasts. But then I'll come out with some crazy conspiracy that I think's true, and he'll go, "You've been listening to podcasts again, Dad." He said, that's not real, Dad. That's not real, Dad. And I'm like, but it is. So yeah, he gets it.
Do you think you'd come on as part of an episode or something, or
he's? I think ultimately one of his secret little personal ambitions is to become a really good editor, either in audio or video. But we've tried really hard. The work experience, we tried getting him into TV companies, and because of so much that's gone on in the industry, people under 18 just don't get a chance. So we've really struggled getting him in. But he had his own YouTube channel as a kid, like editing his own videos and stuff. So he likes it. He might try his hand at fighting first.
He said he was going to I'll just fight for money.
I'm just going to fight for money. Why would I want to work like my dad?
Well, works for some people, doesn't it?
But no, yeah, hopefully he does enjoy it, but it's cool.
What do you think, do you think you would have done the podcast if your dad was still around, or is it something that you'd
I wanted to do the podcast for a long time.
Was it your dad say it? I can't imagine you.
Just didn't have time. And one of the things that my mum said to me was, you're going to have to make part of the business you.
Yeah.
Because it's Malcolm at the moment, and it's been Malcolm forever. And I felt guilty almost making even the smallest change regarding the business. It's taken us a year to do that little reception walkway and do the office. And I'm really pleased I've done it because I've made it mine. But also my dad's still a part of it. The signs, the logo that I have made for my dad, and
it's still his name as it.
It's still MS Welding, and the Weld Like Bazza point of it is just like, listen, I want everybody to be able to weld like this. I want people to get a benefit out of it, and and as MS Welding, we've got the tools to help you get there. My dad, if I'd have said to my dad, like I used to build the website, and then look what I've done with the website, be like, I'm not interested. You know, it was very old school. 99% of our recurring work was word of mouth.
Yeah.
You never needed to advertise from day one, from starting in business for yourself. So the podcast for me was purely, I want to talk about Dad, but I want people to understand that I've got my own take on it, and I've learnt my own ways, and I've got my own education, and I've got my own knowledge, and I didn't want to be just branded as Malcolm's son.
Yeah.
And I felt that quite often we had a chap come, he travelled something like 300 miles to buy a Tetrix AC/DC 230, and he wanted me to sign it because he'd seen one of the YouTube videos. And he was like, it's genuinely Barry from YouTube. And I signed it, and he brought his son in this transit van. And this particular job he did was the Weld aluminium roofs. So they have like 100 metres of torch cable, a generator in back at a van, Tetrix AC/DC 230, all in a really tidy little kind of environment. And they don't use gas lenses. They use standard ceramic, standard collets, pushed tungsten right inside collet, get laid on roof, and they use like 4mm.
Scottish, was he?
No, but there has been a Scottish bloke come, which was set up, but this guy were from the opposite direction.
Right, okay.
But they all do the same job.
I think I've spoke to this guy, the Scottish guy. I don't know whether he's mates with this other.
I think they're mates.
Aye, so when you were talking about the application, I was like, that's like the Scottish guy came to our place. He brought a 100-meter TIG torch with him.
Yeah.
And said, can I weld with it just to prove it works?
Just to prove it works. Because I'd already proven that it works.
Yeah. So he must have spoke to him, or he's recommended. Either way, they've probably...
And like the amount, they do something like 50 metres in a day.
Oh, unreal.
And it's like 4mm welding rod. I think they use 5556. And they just absolutely bang it in. And it's just non-stop.
Must get a TIG speed up there, doesn't he?
Can you imagine? Like 100-metre cables on it.
Oh, no.
When we were out here, he brought some aluminium and he laid it on floor, and my dad were laughing because the bloke had me laid on this aluminium outside in rain, everything in his van, and his son were in van watching, and he had me welding it on floor, and then he was like, right, I'm going to have a go now. And he's laid on floor, like, this is how I do it. This is how I do it. It's like pissing it down with rain, like driving rain. And we were getting soaked, and he was just like, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Yeah, it's just what I wanted. Can you sign it?
That's unreal, isn't it?
I've got a picture on my phone, and my dad were like, he made me sign it with a black pen.
But your dad thought that was weird, did he?
He was like, this is weird.
I can imagine that.
So it's something I've always wanted to do, and my love for radio and my passion for that, I just thought I wanted to put it to a good use. And it's working wonders for us to be able to tell stories, get people in. Alan jumped on a post on LinkedIn about 2 weeks ago where somebody were talking about getting people to transition from welder to sales. And Alan basically said, you want to listen to what Barry and Sheldon were talking about on the podcast?
Yeah.
Because if we're not careful, we're going to have nobody to transition. We're going to have nobody to make that transition. And Alan worded it so well. And it sparked a conversation. Sheldon's on holiday in Tenerife, reading it, and he jumps in saying, I'm on holiday at the moment, but this is just the conversation we wanted. Somebody from Lincoln made a comment. I think it was a Lincoln post, actually.
Right.
So like all of a sudden, Alan's saying we should really have a forum where we get all the big players. It's a non-competitive atmosphere. We're all there to be in it together. And Alan said, ultimately, if we're not careful, what will happen is it will be like what Barry said. There'll be nobody pulling trigger. Nobody's going to be selling welding machines. And he went, that's a situation we all need to be very aware of. So I think Sheldon phoned me this week, and he was saying he's going to get in touch with a guy who initially did the post. And then we do need to get this forum situation. And I'm thinking if we get, and when I say, get everybody in the room together, I can host it. We can go around. We can have a really good open discussion, record it all, break it down into segments for the podcast so people can listen back. But I think you've raised some really good points today from the avenues that you're working within of people are liking the new side of the technology. People are loving, the new ways of learning. And that's really important. What you've told me about people coming onto the stand at 16, being super excited about the robot, and my kind of view on, let's make it that easy for them to design it on the phone and take it to work with them. All that side of it, then it moves, let's design it on your iPad, but you've got a mock-up on your iPad at home of the robot situation at work. That'd be really, really cool. And I'm sure it's dead simple. I'm sure it's dead achievable.
It might even be sort of out there
ready that we don't know about. Because somebody thinks it's not applicable yet. But then we're having this conversation, they're going to think actually it is applicable.
Well, we've put our names on it. I know that.
But so really good things have come of it, and that's ultimately what I wanted. And I get to talk about my dad, and I spoke about it. And I went and supported the local club on Monday, and they were like, the podcast has been my grief process.
Did you go to the?
Yeah, I went on Monday.
Cool. I love that. When you said that episode that they had it on the Monday. And the way that it had panned out because they lost him on the Tuesday morning, was it?
They found him on the Tuesday morning, didn't they?
So they said, right, on Monday, everyone knows that Monday is the worst day of the week. And the way that all came into it, like listening to it, it was like, say, I texted you, I was like, that was really powerful, related quite a lot to it. But yeah, the way that it came about it's brilliant to hear that side of it. That's what, when you're talking about Stephen Bartlett, where you've started a welding podcast, but then you're getting the likes of these on, and it's just, because it's life. It's not just welding.
Life stuff.
Yeah, it's all lifestyle.
And it's going to apply to everybody. And we're in a male-orientated industry. And I just booked it. I didn't tell anybody that I was going to reach out and ask and invite them on. I must have been having a bad couple of days. And I thought this would be a perfect opportunity. I'm in a male-orientated industry. And I'd had a couple of colleagues call in who I could tell that particular person that week was struggling, and he took it out on me. And I just thought, I'm cool with that. But ultimately, let's open doors to other people, because he might have somebody outside of it that he can talk to, but there might be other people that come and take it out on me for some reason one particular day, and they don't have anybody else. So if I can make it so everybody can hear that there is people for and do you know, it's just as he said as well, you got such a range of people and there's such a range of problems. The group was that big on the night that I went. They had to break it into 3 smaller groups and give it to 3 different kind of leaders.
Yeah, because he gave the numbers on like the difference in terms of the first group was what, like 7 or 8 people, and then now it's gone.
I think we had 38 people in on Monday.
But there's multiple
all over the
clubs.
UK.
Yeah. It's amazing.
So like the guy that started the one that I attended was the guy that was speaking about.
Yeah.
It was a branch off from the one in Dewsbury. So he brought it local to me. And I thought it was in the town hall. And he emailed me on Monday. So I'd done loads of traveling Monday. Done like 600 miles. I got up at 3:00. And I was having a Costa in the service, and I thought I'm going to just have a power nap. We've got in our van, we can drop the middle down, it turns into a coffee table, or you can pull the other seat down. I kind of got laid out on it as a bench, and I read my emails, and he'd said, "Do you think you might come along tonight?" And I thought, he's taking time to message to see if I'm going to go. And I went, and there was just a massive range of people. Like, you could tell that there were problems and levels of problems of all ranges, and listening to other problems helps you reflect on your own.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it.
I really like the way that they structured it so any newcomer would be last. Or
and that's true, yeah.
That was brilliant because, like you say, imagine going in at that and ultimately making that decision on your own that I'm going to go to one of those groups, as terrifying as it is.
I found it a bit I'm not scared of much. And I turned up, there were like fucking 40 blokes stood outside. Yeah. I'm thinking...
Yeah.
And if it hadn't been knowing that the guy Andy that had been on the show was inside, I might have walked past. I might have walked past and thought, well, at least I walked past. But my mum's explained that same situation. My mum said that when she signed up to a grief group, and first time she thought, well, if I get to the door, I've done really well. Yeah. But she walked in. I was so proud of her, but I didn't think I'd experience it until I walked up, and there's like 40 people outside. I'm like. So I walked through, and one guy said, "Oh, is it your first night?" And I went, "Yeah." And I walked in. I enjoyed it. We're good. It's my mum's birthday on Monday, so I might not get there because it'll be the first one without Dad.
Yeah.
But even on the bank holidays, they don't do bank holidays. My particular group have a walk and talk. So they meet up during the day on the bank holiday Monday, and you all go for a walk together. I think it's quite cool.
That's massively important. Like I say, mixing the two as in talking and exercising.
Really good.
Unbelievable. And the more that people hear about that, they'll understand that level of importance and the changes. So, no, that's really good. Like,
how far are you running?
Running at the minute, I'll make sure I run once a week, but I'll do either a 3-4 mile, or I'll do the odd 6 mile.
Now, are you finding it?
Depends on how quick I want to go. Like, I'll generally I'll try and do a 5K PB.
Right.
Every other week or something.
Right, good.
Where I'm blowing.
And have you read that somewhere? Is that something you've read?
I've read so I do a lot of studying on the effective zonal training. So it's mainly for my bike. So you've got you'll tend to do long rides at zone 2, which is a sort of a heart rate of around 130 beats per minute. So and it gets your metabolic state. So you're predominantly burning fats. And then once you go into sort of high exertion, you use glycogen and all that. So I read up loads about that. So the either run side of it, I'll do one fast one. Then I hate running, to be honest. I really don't enjoy it.
You'd be amazing at the amount of people that actually say the same thing.
I like it after, exercise.
You get the runner's kick.
Well, I think if any exercise that causes you pain, cycling is really painful, but I love every minute of that. Right. It's addictive. The running side is, if not harder, and I hate every minute of it. But after, I look at all my stats and I went 30 seconds quicker than last week. What a buzz that gives you.
Cool.
And that level of dopamine hit is...
It's huge on running.
Oh, it's and then I'll have an ice bath straight after me run.
Have you got an ice bath at home?
I had one. I put one outside onto the patio. She must have thought I was absolutely mental.
Nuts.
Properly thought.
Which one did you buy?
I can't even remember then. It might have been that Lumi Spa one.
The Lumi one, the inflatable one.
Yeah. But I had a problem with the gutter and the roof, so the rain came through and it filled the whole lot up.
Right.
And I was like, I'm going to have to move that. And I just filled it with about, 80, 90 litres of whatever it is. So I started draining it. I was like, that's enough. So I tried to pull it and the legs ripped off.
Right.
So I kept all the packaging and so I just sent it back and got my money back. I said it was faulty.
Faulty from you.
So all I do now is just...
Don't try that with any EWM kit, by the way.
No,
anybody.
definitely not.
I will know.
So I just jump in the bath now, freezing cold water.
Oliver started having freezing cold showers off his own back. I don't know where it's come from.
It's really good for you. I do a cold shower every day, so I have hot, clean. The last 30 seconds, I'll blast
flick it round over cold. Chris Evans does that.
Loads of people do it.
Because he's super into running. Jenny Faulkner, is it Jenny Faulkner? She runs Run Pod.
Right.
And she's on radio. She's well into her running. And she talks about, she had Gokwan on. He's got into running. He needed to do something for fitness.
Yeah.
Had nothing, didn't feel that he had the time. He can do running in 15 minutes, 3 or 4 times a week. He runs down the embankment.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm not a runner. But then how he spoke about it on the podcast, he's a runner, proper trainers, proper kit. He understood about how to carry his body.
People don't realise that a lot of people don't know how to run. It sounds so easy, but I played football for 20 odd years.
So you would have run completely different as a footballer to how you need to run on the street or up the hills.
Yeah,
completely
absolutely.
Different.
Yeah, I learned the way that you lean forward slightly running. I was getting really bad shin splints, and then I changed my running form and I bought New Balance running trainers.
I run with New Balance.
Amazing, amazing comfort and look at. Still hate the running, but I don't think I'll ever get into a point where I enjoy the actual process of it, but I'll always have that hit after.
I struggled coming out of COVID when I started running again, and I just felt really kind of completely not as fit as I was, and I didn't really change anything through COVID, and I don't know if I caught COVID and never had any symptoms, or I don't know, but I felt really unfit, and I went to the doctors and they was like, right, we're going to get you on an inhaler. I've weaned myself off it because I don't think it did me any good. But then when I got back into it, I did feel that my cardiovascular, my breathing wasn't as good. So what I did is I just used to go find huge, massive hills, start at the bottom, get it as far up it as quick as I could, and then stop.
Yeah.
And 2 minutes, and then hell for leather. And I just did that until I could get it. And I got my fitness level up to that point where I can just do the full hill, really good constant pace. And I live right at the bottom of some big hills.
Yeah.
So I've got that. And it's good. That is one good thing about where we live. But the running side of it for me, it's afterwards when you just stop and you just think, I've done that. You look back over you, especially if you're into the hills like me.
Yeah.
You look over your shoulder and you think, I've just come up that.
Yeah. Oh, well, I had the same hit when we went to Mallorca, like climbing the biggest mountain in Mallorca. Yeah. It's 14 miles.
Right.
And it's nearly 3,000 feet above sea level.
Really?
In 28-degree heat. We actually came down it and had a coffee and some food, then climbed back up it.
Right.
And yeah, it took well over an hour to get to the top. And I ran out of water halfway up. And you can see there's a tunnel at the top which goes through the mountain. And you're like, nearly there. Nah, you're nowhere near. There's no relevance to there's no road signs to say 10K from the top. There's no countdown. You got no idea. But when you get to the top and you look back down what you've just done, it's unreal. I ran up Mount Snowdon. Well, I've done it twice. And I said to my mate Mark, who's an ultra runner. How high is Snowdon? It's the highest one, isn't it? Yeah. And the first time we did it, we took some turkey sandwiches with us so we could have a white Christmas. We did it on a Boxing Day. And my uncle was like, who's an avid kind of walker, hiker. You're stupid going up there without proper climbing kit and rope. And I said to Mark, what we're taking? He went, rucksack, water, sandwiches, whatever we've got. And I didn't even have proper scarpers at that point. I had some really crap running shoes, and we ran straight up it 1 hour, 27 minutes. Yeah. And we got to the top. It was just white over, snowy, Boxing Day, got caught in a blizzard for about 2 minutes. Got round the back, had his turkey sandwiches right on the peak, and then we came back and had a really good chat on the way back. And then we did it a couple of summers after. We did it over a 24-hour period. Every single lake we came across, we swam the lake. Yeah. And there was this one particular point of that day where he said, I'm going to take you to this secret spot. It wasn't secret at all. They were everybody were there. He had a jetty, this great big lake. He said, I'll pump a paddleboard up. That's after we jumped off jetty and had a swim. Yeah. And it was 7:00 at night. It was warmer than bathwater was the lake. I was looking up at Mount Snowdon in the sunshine. And I just thought, you know what? We've got a pretty awesome planet, you know, and we're part of it, you know, it's cool. The buzz that you get, when we were going towards this mountain, the scenery, it's And you try and take a photo of it on your phone, and I go back and I show people, and I can see the underwhelming feeling on their face because I can't do it justice of how
amazing it does look at the time.
And I feel sorry for people that don't they never experience that, because like I was talking about earlier, they might be too hungover, or they might just think it's weird
or boring.
Yeah, well, I don't think me and her go on walks. The faster the better for me, right? So I like going really quick. So walking for me, it's great for us and all that, and I do feel better after. But I'm like, God Almighty, I just want to go quick.
Let's get going. What I mean? Let's get going.
I want to run like Phoebe or Friends, so it's like leg it down the road. You know what I mean? Just to get rid of that energy. But yeah, you can't underestimate the importance of like an experience like that.
Yeah. I think the older that you get as well, the more of them you get in.
Oh, without a doubt.
The more soul fulfilling it is, I think.
20-year-old me could probably look at me saying this, he'd be like, mate, you're weird. You know?
Yeah, I wish I could go back. I wish I could, I did quite well, to be fair, because I'd still DJ till 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'd still be on the lake wakeboarding Sunday at 11 o'clock. I'd still do it. I was that mad for it. And I broke my ribs doing that, actually. So like you broke your ribs on your bike, I broke my ribs a couple of times wakeboarding, and didn't realise till week after when I was deadlifting and it popped out in my shirt. And I was training with that female bodybuilder at the time. Absolute nuts. But I think, I had a really good time, but did I start that a little bit too late? Would I like to have started that maybe 10 years sooner? I think so, when I had a little bit less fear.
Yeah.
Do a little bit more.
That's why I think when we were texting the other day and you was talking about the wakeboarding, and I was like, I did snowboarding.
Yeah.
I did it too late.
Yes.
So for some reason or whatever, I was saying earlier that the cycling and going downhill, I'm not scared of it because I've done it for so long.
Yeah.
Trying to learn how to snowboard at 29, 30-year-old.
It's quite, it's daunting.
Oh,
you don't want to injure yourself.
Well, I broke my ribs on the first day doing that as well. So I actually had my phone on the inside pocket of my jacket, and I went down really hard, and I broke my phone. And I was in agony. That was the first day of the holiday. Now, bear in mind,
so this is on holiday?
That's on holiday. I was in Chamonix in France.
Wow.
So me and my mate spent a fortune to go over there. Done my ribs the first day. So I had to do it every day. I was in agony. And I was drinking during the day to try and numb the pain.
Yeah.
But then you're trying to be pissed and you snowboard at the same time. I couldn't snowboard sober. And I put it down to you see kids were flying past, and I'm thinking that level of fear was there. I mean, I had that ski tracker or something on my phone the first day before I'd smashed it to bits, and it was like 40 mile an hour on a plank of wood that my feet were strapped into.
Yeah.
And I think that's so weird, but then I don't think of anything going 60 mile an hour on a bike.
No, at all. And ripping your skin off your legs.
I think I've still got scars and that now. So
I did actually want to ask you what trainers you were running in, so it's good that you said you got some New Balance
1080s.
Is that what you've got?
1080s.
I got the original 1080s, and I've got the new ones.
My mate recommended, so my mate's a massive runner, and I said I'm going to get into it. And I used to run in these, they were killing me feet. And he said get some 1080s. So I went on sports shoes.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
For really long walks, I've got some Scarpas. My mum and dad gave me some money for Christmas a couple of years ago, and it was a Christmas before my dad died, and I bought myself these Scarpas, and they were 158 quid.
Are they like a hiking / walking trainer type thing? Or?
Yeah, really technical sole. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't, I hated them at first. They felt good in the shop, and I thought, that sales guy's, he's had me.
Yeah.
And he had a pair on, and he was like, I wear these everywhere. I don't have any other shoes apart from if it's a really, really posh occasion. And I thought afterwards, he's had me, and I wore them, and it's taken me a big amount of time to wear them in. Now they're the best thing ever. I don't think I'd go back to any other kind of walking or semi-running shoe whatsoever.
You'll have to send us that, because it's always put me off going to, say Snowden or something like that, because I think footwear is massively important, so you'll have to send us.
I started out with the Innovates, and I got some Innovates because I did a couple of Total Warrior events, and that's how I met one of my best friends. Actually, he was the guy that we got like a couple of mile in, and we were part of a big team. It was a team from Oliver's Martial Arts School, and I went, somebody missing. So my best mate Big Ollie went, well, you better get running back and find him then, aren't you? And I'm like, cheers. And he only came for last day, did Big Ollie. And I ran back and I got Jason, and Jason was struggling. I went, come on, Jay, let's do it together. And I dragged him through. And obviously I did that for quite a few people on this Total Warrior. And I had Innovates for that. And what I found about those particular shoes were they were very tight fitting and really, really light, which is good for that kind of thing. That were a really hot summer. So the ground was still quite hard. And I suffered at that particular point. I got so hot in the heat, running backwards and forwards for people. I think I did the course about 3 times to help others. And we had to drop into this river. And I don't know if you've ever seen any pictures of Big John, but he's immense, doesn't eat meat. He's Big Ollie's right-hand man. They work together. No, Big Ollie, they both do different jobs now, but they did each other's right-hand man. Incredibly insane at martial arts, like just unbeatable. I used to spar with him in the park and would play elbows and knees for hours because I just couldn't beat him. And then I'd take him to the gym and I'd make him train legs with me, and it'd turn into a bloodbath because he'd be like, I'm not letting Baz beat me. And he was this huge guy who like, he doesn't eat meat and he's just like insane. And we dropped into this river and I got cold and I'm like, John, I'm freezing. He was like, right, we're going to have to swim up here and get out. He says, you're turning blue. And I think it's because I'd just been in the red hot heat helping everybody. And I dropped into the shade and I'm like that. No weight on my bones whatsoever. And like Big John's 20 stone almost going, right, come on, let's go. And we ended up beating everybody still by... So I'd done it 3 times. I think I went back and out to 3 people, and we still bet everybody by 45 minutes.
Is that the one? Is there one in Leeds?
Yeah, there's a big one.
There's a one in Scotland as well, isn't there? Or is there one?
Warrior's quite a big one now, so I think there's loads of little ones.
I think
as
Alan's
well.
done it before, hasn't he?
Oh, he used to get stupid times. Like he used to do it before people had even set off, and he'd finish. He did it really quick, did Alan?
I don't have the upper body strength for that sort of event.
You know the great big steel bins that they put onto back of trucks with, it becomes part of the truck, and they normally fill them with cardboard and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
They fill one of them with ice, and that's the ice dunk. So we have to get in, swim under, and then your mates pull you out at the other end.
Like, so you're fully submerged.
Yeah.
Like,
and you can imagine everybody's just a bit nuts at a martial arts school anyway.
Yeah.
Ricky, speaking of it, Ricky's got his own Lumi bath that he sits in, his ice bath outside. He said it's one of the best things he's ever done.
Mate, honestly, I need to get another one really, but
without pulling legs off.
Yeah. I hope that whoever sold it on Amazon isn't listening. The money was in the bank before I'd even shipped it. I just put return faulty legs.
Cool.
And I got the money back.
Obviously happened before then.
Yeah, definitely. So I need to get another one. My mate's got on like a full on like wooden, this wooden surround.
Yes.
Steps up, and he's got his own sauna in his back garden. I
fancy building one, and doing it with my own wood burning stove. Turn it into that'd be cool.
That would be cool.
Well, that's my lifetime ambition, living in a little cabin.
Yeah. The older I get, the more that I sort of like think that way at the same time.
Who'd want to live in a big house where everybody's segregated across the house and even less communication goes on than now, where everybody's on the phone? That's why I tend to live in smaller houses or apartments where the kitchen is part of the living room and everybody's still together at all times. So a cabin where it's all on one level and maybe you've got a little mezzanine upstairs and you've got your own little off-grid sauna and steam room.
I mean, I'll look at constant breaks for me and her where it's just like these remote places. But they just like price you out of it, Yeah,
it's too expensive. You can go to Benidorm twice for that money.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't put her through that. She had to deal with my hangover for about a week after.
Is your missus into training? Does she train?
She goes to the gym. I think the only problem she hasn't found that thing, like my thing is cycling. Like she hasn't found that. I think it's probably a bit tougher for females. I don't know, maybe it's because, at school, like if you're an active female where they're all like normally in little groups talking and laughing, it's a bit weird if like, the lasses that used to play football.
I agree.
It was seen a bit weird. So she hasn't really she goes to the gym 3 or 4 times a week, but you can tell she's like, she just does it just because she has to.
She feels like she needs to.
Yeah.
It's a necessity.
She likes walking and that, but she says, oh, well, can we go running together? And I'm like, yeah, we can, but like, it hurts. And like at the gym, you've got that. If you're on a treadmill, you've got that option. There's a button there
to stop or get off.
That's why I don't like going to gym. I like running
A
miles
treadmill
away.
in a gym is okay for warming up,
Yeah.
or warm up only,
I like running 2 miles away from the house, and
because then you got to run back.
you've got to run back. And there's that. I like running in the rain.
Yeah, it's
Like,
awesome
I
feeling.
say I like running in the rain. I prefer running in the rain. I don't like running, as we've established. But running in the rain, I find easier because it keeps you cool and
It's
all that.
nice.
It's just a weird.
I'm a water baby anyway, so
I like.
you could buy a paddleboard.
I've looked into it.
Right.
There's so many places up, like St Mary's Loch. Me and Johnny used to go up on the motorbikes there, and he actually went back up, I think, with his missus and paddleboard with the dog on the.
You can get a paddleboard for 250 quid.
Yeah.
I bought Oliver's first paddleboard, 250 quid, and it's done us 3 summers.
You can pretty much pitch up anywhere you want as well, can't you?
You can and this one folds down. You can put it in a rucksack. So some of the places where we go are quite inaccessible.
Yeah.
So we stick it you stick it on your back, pump it up with a great big pump.
Yeah.
Everybody laughs at that part on the beach. It goes rock hard once you've got the right pressure in there. And they're insane amount of fun.
Yeah.
Just get something to lock your car keys to your body so you don't lose them.
Yeah.
Unless you've got somebody on the beach that can look after your stuff. But yeah, just that's the most important
You should
part.
go up to Tynemouth, because they do a lot of that at Tynemouth.
Do they?
If you can get up over that way, loads of people now are doing like they do a Saturday morning dip where they all run, like there's a big group of them, and they'll just run hell for leather, run in the sea, freezing cold, 6-7 o'clock in the morning.
I did that
And then
Boxing Day.
Well, it is a Boxing Day dip, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think probably that'll be me next year, because like I said, my sort of period now where I'm starting to do that mad sort of things is like now. So, and then this group does that, and they'll all go for a coffee together after.
So anybody who thinks that the welding industry is not cool, just got to listen to this conversation about how cool it actually
I
is.
haven't spoken about welding about that much in the second half, but
We are not really, but it just shows that normal people are involved in it, young and old, but it's cool, and everybody's got really cool hobbies and interests, and that it is a really cool career. Obviously you fund all this from working in the welding industry. You a really good bike, you might still be paying for it, but and you look really good in your EWM hoodie. And I want to thank you very much for my my EWM hoodie. And all the posters it looks good in here now,
it
doesn't
does. Like, and when I came in and I seen this table set up, it's like, this is like proper
it? It's a
studio.
little bit Joe Rogan now.
It
We
is.
are getting there
I
now.
think the camera's next time.
Yeah, and my dad's still here. My dad's still a big part of it on the desk.
Exactly. So yeah,
Are you ready for some quick fire questions?
go for it.
Highlight of your week?
This is I've noticed you brought this in. And this is a bit I've been nervous about, but hit us with them
Are you sweating?
a little bit.
Right.
This EWM
Do you
hoodie is
need
very
topping
well
up
made.
with I've got hydrogenated water.
I go on then.
Right, come on then. Highlight of your week?
Highlight of this week. What day one? Wednesday,
Thursday.
Oh, it's got to be the bike ride last night.
Awesome. Where did you go? Tell me about it.
So started from work. I just put the bike in the back of the car, and then straight after work, 2 of my mates live local, so they meet me at work, and then we go out the back of Morpeth. Literally no one around. It's just
Because it is pretty up there, isn't it?
Oh, it's beautiful. Me and my mate actually said this. So one of them cried off. He was away. And then me and my mate were going past, I can't even remember there's a lake, and there was like sheep, there was some geese, and we were just going through. And there was sun actually got out really nice last night about way. And we just went past and we looked at each other, and at the exact same point went, how nice is this? And so little things like that.
You've got to experience it.
Yeah, 100%. Even like just once in your life, just Northumberland.
Fall off a bike.
Yeah, but just get back up.
Get back up.
Fall off it again.
Downer of the week. What's been the downer of the week? Work orientated or not?
No, it is. I haven't got one, but
That's good. That's good.
not a serious one. The most upset I've been this week is I didn't pull my coffee shot as well as I should have yesterday morning, so I'll do it again.
I've got a right shot for you before you leave, and we're going to do that live. Biggest misconception of the welding industry? This is really good, this question. I'm going to start incorporating this into every show with somebody from the welding industry. Biggest misconception of the welding industry from your point of view. Might be completely different to me.
That's a tough question. What is yours?
Up until starting the podcast, it was extremely competitive, everybody out for themselves. Since I've managed to open different conversations and try and get people who on paper are all competitors to talk together, if it might not pan out yet, might it? But I think, we need to pull together. But I always felt that we never did.
See, I totally agree. I used to think that a competitor was an enemy, and I've realised now that they're all people like us.
Yeah.
And I spoke to the guys from, Richard from Megatronic last week. Get on with them, great.
Yes.
I speak to the guys from Lincoln. I bumped into one of the guys from Kempy a few weeks ago, and they're all just people. And I used to see them as, like you say, competitors too much.
Everybody's trying to do a job.
Yeah. Everyone's just, I was speaking to Gary Taylor from Bowler as well. And they always ask, what you're getting into, where are you at, and all that sort of stuff. And you give a little bit and you don't let too much. And everyone says, so Gary said the same, and then the guys from Kempy said the same. There's enough to go around for everyone. And I think as long as we're all doing well as an industry, it shows that it's on the rise. Everybody always used to think that Wakefield Welding was our biggest enemy. Nobody's checked get on
in
with them very well.
Nobody's checked in as much on me on a personal level, on a weekly basis, sometimes a couple of times a day.
Yeah.
There's enough to go around for everybody. And yesterday I phoned him. I sent him a message yesterday saying, sorry, I've not replied to your message. It just got past me. I've been super busy. I've just been out to this customer. This is what I think of it. I'm not actually going to take it on. And this is my reasons why. And his response was, then I'm going to leave it alone as well for the very same reasons. I trust what your gut feeling is. And that's not the kind of company that I want to deal with either.
Yeah.
That is meaning that everybody's working together and there is enough to go around for everybody.
Well, I think, look at you've been a customer of EWMs for God knows how many years now, and we were essentially doing the same job in terms of service engineers, but we've only really, I would say, since your dad passed.
This last year.
We are properly totally different with each other
I know.
now. We text
all the time.
All the time. We've got common interests, and I remember when we lost your dad, and I was going through an awful time myself, but it was for a totally different reason, and it was nothing specific. It was just I didn't feel great.
Okay.
And you had this massive loss with your dad and all that, and I was like, I'm not going to even say it because my problems are so insignificant, but I was like, what can I do? I'm not going to give you advice because I didn't know what to say in that situation. I'm going to say, what can I do for Barry? And my way of helping you was, if you ever needed a quote, a price, a part number, I dropped whatever I was doing at that time to give you. I still do it now because I have that much respect in terms of you're on your own. And I was like, right, if he needs me, that's the way I can help him. And now I think we're just like I say, we're talking a different way. It's
completely different way.
We talk more about food and exercise than we do welding.
I know.
And
then the welding pack comes, within it all and stuff. And
and you'll text in the office, and I'll text you back saying, throw us a quote over, no rush, and I'll make sure you have it.
It's cool. And that's a relationship that's so important, and it's come from, I think, it's a horrible thing to say, but there is a lot of good that came out of Dad passing away, and it's a horrible thing to say.
You mean, yeah.
But because I still find it hard to understand that good did come of that situation. But I know that he's sat here now with us, looking in, going, it's the only way I could help you.
Yeah.
Because everybody knew how stubborn Dad was. He didn't want to go, so he was obviously taken. It obviously wasn't his choice. So he's obviously thinking, but I've managed to leave you in such a way that you've got everybody around you that you need.
I always have a massive regret that I didn't know him better than, of all the times, I only met your dad face to face once.
Partly his fault though as well,
We both laughed about it. I remember walking in there, I just dropped it. I was driving down the country and I dropped a Tetrix off for him.
I remember.
And we both said, I can't believe, it was probably 7-8 years I'd maybe been there.
Alan's been once.
And I was like, I think I said, Malcolm, I'm sorry, this is the first time I've been to see you. And I always had this, not in a bad way, but I was always a little bit intimidated when I spoke to him on the phone.
Yeah.
Because of his wealth of knowledge, and I felt a little bit like, I'm so out of my depth talking to this guy because he had so.
He didn't make you. He wasn't the best at making people feel at ease, or either.
I got used to that side, but then like he rang us once, and it's something I'll never forget. That he rang us. I don't think you were there, or you must have been out calibrating or whatever. And he said, "I've got this machine. It's quite new to me. I'm not that familiar. I've got this. I've got that." And I said, "Oh, all right, I know what that is. It's this, this, and this." And he rang us back an hour later. And he went, "Yep, all sorted. Thank you."
Yeah.
And then that was it. And I was like, "Get in! I've just helped them there." Do you know what I mean? I was like, help the bloke that like helped me. I remember when I needed some help on like the British standard, so I calibrated. I wanted someone. I rang your dad, and Paul said, "Ring Malcolm."
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not ringing Malcolm, like, nah. And I was like, it took us about 10 minutes. I sat, because I've got my own little office bit. I just sat looking at the phone and was like, right, ring him. And I've never had that with many other customers, but he went, "How can I help you?" And I just said, "Well, I've got this. Can you just, yeah. And then that was it.
Yeah.
And but what a massive...
I've fallen out with people over... there'd be times I've been at workshop listening to conversations where my dad had told somebody and helps them with his time. So he's broken off whatever jobs he's on with and helped somebody. And then they've either stabbed him in back over it or gone against what he said. And then they've phoned up again. And I've kind of been at that point where he spent a couple of hours of his time helping you for no other reason than wanting to help you. And then you've stabbed him in back. And that happened about a year before he passed away. And I remember I let go at this bloke, and he popped in to see me. And I was like, "I fucking caught you on a bad day, didn't I?" And I was like, "Yeah." But I was never defending myself. It was always my dad because he just had this organic, self-learned knowledge that he would never be beat. He would investigate in real time. Yeah, you know, and which is a really good way to learn, isn't it? But he had some amazing teachers himself. Yeah. And, you know, being in the deep end quite often and always wanting to help the customer, he was never going to be beat. I remember we once went out to a Lincoln Bullet. Right. So do you know what we're talking about in terms of a Lincoln Bullet? Like,
I think you were talking to someone else on the podcast, and I was like, what? So I did a little bit.
Have you Googled it?
I Googled it,
Right.
That is beyond me. That's before my time, I believe.
Well, we'd had to go back out to it because it had been rewound.
Right.
But the rewinder that he used on this particular occasion was the opposite hand to the rewinder that used to do them.
Right.
So the windings were wound back to front.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And my dad put it in, and we... right, come on, Bazza, get it fired up. Now, these things are monsters, and they're spinning around in front of you and shaking about. And, you know, you look at your dad, and it's like there's a bit of an haze between you, and you're this close. And that's because of heat coming off it, and noise and vibration. Go on, Bazza, get it fired up. You're always, come on, Bazza, get it fired up. Which is why it's called the Weld Like Bazza podcast, because my dad was the only person that called me Bazza. And he's shaking, and he's just like looking like blank, this look on his face that he had. I'm like, it's not working. It's not working. So shut it down. And he didn't touch anything. He didn't get a tool out. He didn't. And he thought, right, it's late at night. I'm going to have to think about it. And he phoned the bloke. He went, "You left-handed?" Out of nowhere. He went, "That's a bit of a funny question." He went, "Answer me a question. Are you left-handed?" He went, "Yeah." He went, "That'll do. Put phone down. Come on, we're going." Threw stuff in van. I went, "Come on, get van loaded, we're going." Drove out to this job, just pulled the bloke off it, get out of the way, like ripped front end off, turned wires two-way around, turned wires opposite way around on poles, fired it up. There you go, Bazza. And I was like, "You what?" Like, where does that come from?
I know.
I know I do stuff, and Oliver says I'm very much like my dad, like that same situation, but where did he get it from?
No.
Are you left-handed?
I'm left-handed anyway, so... Well, yeah, I'm left-handed, so I could have been the one that caused that problem.
To come up with that, are you left-handed, is all he needed to ask him to know what was wrong.
But he must have, like, that night that he's gone back and went, "Leave it, I'll think about it." He's then gone through every eventuality, and he's come to that conclusion that that's the only possible way.
We used to catch him on toilet in the middle of the night or in bath. And he told me this story about a lot of his rewinding experience came from a guy we lost through COVID, who were another genius, but in a little bit more of an Heath Robinson way.
Right.
So apparently Mick, this chap, went out to a fairground ride once. I'll tell you another story next time you come on about fairground rides with my dad. And it used like a variable transformer for drive. And it had lost its conductivity. So he said, "What are you going to do, Mick?" So, "I'm going to go to the pub, I'm going to have 5 pints, I'm going to come back and I'm going to piss in tank." So my dad went, "You what?" I said, "Yeah." So he went to the pub and he had 5 pints and he came back, and electrolytes that he pissed out were enough to do whatever it needed to water to make it conduct to get fairground ride up and running. Right. Like on a different level, right? Where does that come from? I'm going to go to the pub and have 5 pints because by the time I piss those electrolytes out, right, that's going to be enough to make it conduct in water.
That's unbelievable.
Without it flashing over.
I'd be knackered now.
And this guy looks like a scruffier version of Jack Sparrow.
A scruffier version?
Scruffier version of Jack Sparrow.
God, he must look scruffy.
There were they had a great big Evo in back room once. It was size at back room running on an engine. It were like 7 foot tall and massive. And Mick came around, my dad says, "I want a second opinion." He said, "There's stators down, but none at readings showed it." And my dad went, "There's something wrong with stator." And Mick was like, "It's mouldy iron." So that were a really old term. And we had a really big 3-phase variac in here. It were capable of delivering 85 amps a phase. Right, so Mick were like, "Right, get some wires hooked up to that Bazza," right? And this was funny because my sister's boyfriend at the time were working for us as well, and he were like middleman. So he were in the back room there shouting to me on variac. My dad's in here with Mick, and they got these wires hooked up, and the Mick's going, "It just needs a bit of re-exciting, Malcolm. It just needs a little bit. It just needs a bit of voltage." And my dad's going, "I'm telling you, you're wrong, Mick. You're wrong, Mick. You're wrong." And it were like we probably fed it with 2.5 mil wire. We weren't going to put a lot of ampage in it, just needed voltage, but we're on to variac. And all I heard was Mick shouting to bloke in middle, and he was going, "Up, Baz, turn it up, turn it up, turn it up." My dad had his meter in, and my dad was going, "Don't take it any higher. If it's not going to go at this voltage, it's not going to go." And Mick were going, "I'm telling you, it's mouldy iron. Just give it a bit more. Give it a bit more." And I just tweaked this variac, and I'm not joking. I tweaked it the smallest amount, and it was like that scene out of Back to Future, you know, when you first see skid marks in flames on the car park, and these 2 wires just lit up through workshop like something out of Back to Future. And Jamie in back room were going, "Turn it off, turn it off, turn it off." I turned it off. I went in back, and the engine was just on its way, winding down, and you couldn't see me dad. There was this massive black cloud of smoke coming out of the machine, and my dad went, "Mick, get out." And then Mick were like, Well, obviously it's bent out. He went, "I told you that before you bent it out completely."
Yeah.
And I really laughed at that. And he knew, and he just had this gut instinct. But that one there, those 2 stories about pissing in tank, so it became more electrolytic and conducted, which I thought were a genius. I'm going to go have 5 pints.
That's unreal, that.
I know. And my dad, like that, "You're left-handed, I'm going to have to turn wires around on and change poles."
That's who your dad was, though, wasn't it?
I know.
That's the only bloke I've still ever come across. Obviously, I see a lot of it in you now in terms of the way that because you've worked together so long and the way your brains work. There's no one else that I speak to in the industry that has that sort of thing about them. Like
calibrating a machine the other day, and I couldn't get it to calibrate. I couldn't get it up. I just couldn't get it to go. And I was like, "I'm going to have to build myself like a little small shunt, so I can shunt it at a very, very small load before I put my load bank in to get it up to come on, because at the size of IGBTs, they're not going to fire with that much load on that gate." But where did that come from? And I was like knocking myself up a little load that played in parallel with my other load, so I could get this machine to calibrate. I'm not going to tell you which it was, but if ever you need some help, let me know. I'll tell you how to do it. Just like that. And that's why I stay at work until like 12 o'clock on a Saturday night.
But like you say,
at least I'm not drinking though. I'm feeling bad.
I know, exactly.
I've just got one more question, mate, before you head off.
Mm-hmm.
Audi or BMW?
Audi.
Really?
Yeah. I think Alan will hate this because he's got a BMW.
Alan's got a Beamer.
I think he asked us, what should I get? Audi. And he's always been out BMW. I think he might have an Audi years and years ago. I was like, get an Audi. I think I think Audi's come a lot. I don't know, the insides I think are nicer.
Nice. And you need that for your aesthetic.
I drive a Skoda, so I'm not really that.
Pretty much the same car anyway, isn't it?
To be honest, it drives great, to be fair.
I love Skodas.
It wasn't, it's so comfortable. I had to drive the van down to Mach. So I pulled rank a bit on Ben. So Ben and Johnny have got the same vans. And then we've got a big, horrible white van that the delivery guy uses just for local stuff. And everyone knew that this white van was going to Birmingham and someone was driving it. And obviously I've got into sales now, so I've got the Skoda and I drive all over the country and it's so comfortable. I looked at Ben and I was like, you've only been here a year. You're taking the white van.
You're driving the white van.
So I sat in the office and Alan said, who's driving that thing down to Birmingham? I went, who do you think? And he went, Ben. And I was like, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So Ben came over on we met on the Sunday morning. We got to work at 10 to 6 in the morning to drive the Mach. So Ben had drove in. I drove in my car and I left it at work. And he just brought his keys over and said, there you go. And then he knew. So me and him up, we drove down, unloaded, drove to the hotel. Then me and him stayed there, then drove back on the Tuesday. So he was sat behind me through 4 journeys where you could just see me driving away. And vans, I drove one for years, but once you've gone to a nice, comfortable car, going back to a van,
it's sad work.
I had problems with my hip this week. My back's been sore. It's like my body's not used to it again.
Amazing.
So yeah,
cool, mate.
I'm more Audi.
Well, it's been great for coming in.
Yeah, it's been good. Really
Thanks for my gifts. Thanks for my new. I'm going to wear that EWM hoodie to death.
Thanks for my lunch and.
No, it's all right, mate. Anytime.
Hydrogen water.
You'll feel great on that journey home now, mate. Cool. Thanks for coming. We'll get Johnny in next.
Absolutely, yeah.
A good 3
We might need to get some software which actually bleeps. I haven't swore this podcast.
No, you've not. I've done a couple.
And I've sat and watched you do it, and like I said, I walked out. I'm
going to bleep mine out. Yeah. I'm going to bleep mine out so we can share more of it.
I left work last night, and Alan said, "Just try not as much of the swear word." And I was like, "It's a podcast, man.
It's a podcast, Alan. Come on."
And then she said the exact same. She said, "Good luck the day. Don't swear." All right, ma'am.
Brilliant, mate. Well, thanks again, and thanks for all support as always. And I've made you the official sponsor on this show.
Nice one.
So I'll do you a nice little advert, and no thanks. And next time you come, we might have a round table.
Yeah, I think we might have one at work.
Round table, 3 chairs.
Anything we've got that I think could, in terms of, getting the studio however you want, we'll support you all.
Well, the pictures look good, don't they, on the wall?
They look really good.
I'm going to go to IKEA, I think, and get some more frames for my new ones. Put one outside. That'll look cool.
Yeah.
That'll look wicked.
Yeah.
It's actually turning into a mini EWM just in Morley.
We need to get you some, just brand you up.
Well, I've got my cups.
Yeah.
I need an EWM kettle next.
I don't even have one of them. So, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll bring my coffee machine next time for you.
I've got a coffee machine. I just haven't bought any pods.
I'll bring my full-on...
Or do you mean we'll have a proper barista moment?
Yeah, I'll do that for you.
We'll have a lesson on that and VR welding.
Yeah, ER welding.
ER welding.
Yeah.
Cool. Right, buddy. I'll see you later, mate.
Sorry, cheers.
Industry news, machine reviews, interviews, and a lot more right here on the Weld Like Bazza podcast. The Weld Like Bazza podcast is sponsored by MS Welding, the #1 welding solution provider. mswelding.co.uk.